Brad's here to the end, by the way.
Okay, thank you. It is 6:00 p.m. on Thursday, January 20th, 2022. I would like to call the Ponce Inlet Town Council to order. I would ask everyone to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Could we have a roll call of the council members, please? Mayor Pritzky. Here. Councilmember Milano. Here. Councilmember Caswell. Councilmember Israel. Here. Vice Mayor Smith. Here. We have a quorum. We have a quorum. Thank you. And here is Ms. Caswell. Let the record reflect that she is here. All members are present in council chambers. And I would like to thank everyone for being here this evening. Welcome. Item 4, agenda adoption. Are there any additions, corrections, or deletions to the agenda entitled Amended Agenda 114-2022 that is mistyped as 2021? I move to approve. Thank you. Is there a second? Second? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The amended agenda is adopted. We now are down to agenda item 5, our proclamations, presentations, and awards. My fellow Ponce Inlet residents, neighbors, and friends, in keeping with tradition, as well as our town charter, it is my honor as mayor to present the annual State of the Town address. As our community begins the new year together, I would like to provide you with a brief overview of key accomplishments and priorities, including our financial condition, essential services, planning, ordinances, improvements, and special recognitions. For the first time in its history, the collective property values in Ponce Inlet have passed the $1 billion threshold. From a financial standpoint, our cash reserves stand at over $3.6 million, equivalent to approximately 7 months of operating expenses. By way of comparison, most Florida municipalities have half or less than that number of months in reserves. Our budget is balanced, and we received another excellent financial audit from our CPAs. Our property tax rates remain among the lowest in Volusia County, with a town millage rate of 5.9 and a composite rate of 19.47. Ponce Inlet is the 5th lowest out of the 17 primary local government service districts, of which some do not provide their own police, fire, and EMS services. For those residents who may still have concerns or heard rumors that we are eliminating our fire department, let me be clear. The fire department is not going anywhere. We value and cherish the services they provide. Our support for these dedicated men and women has never been greater, And our community can be proud that for the first time in its history, the Ponce Inlet Fire Department has embarked upon the path toward achieving accreditation status. Led by Fire Chief Scales and Deputy Chief Taylor, our fire department responds to calls as mandated by our agreement with the county. On average, our EMS crews responded to approximately 1.87 calls per day in 2021. Whenever our ambulance is performing a patient transport, our remaining staffing levels allow us to continue to provide advanced life support capabilities should the need arise. Led by Chief Jeff Glazier and Lieutenant Corey Mead, the fully accredited Ponce Inlet Police Department consists of 13 full-time sworn police officers, 3 part-time, and 2 civilian administrative staff. Thanks to their professionalism, hard work, and dedication, 2021 was another year of extremely low crime statistics in Ponce Inlet. In addition to their role in law enforcement, our police officers contribute to our safety, well-being, and quality of life via their vacation house check, Ponce Partners, Car Fit, and Safety Exchange Zone programs. License plate readers keep track of every single vehicle that enters and exits our town. As a result of investments in our technology infrastructure, our police officers are immediately alerted if a vehicle is associated with an outstanding warrant, expired tag, or if the owner's driver's license is under suspension or revocation. Led by Jeff Miller, our Public Works Department contributes to our health and safety by expertly and efficiently handling our water services, catch basins, drainage areas, roadways, sidewalks, and signs. Public Works also manages the landscaping and maintenance of our town-owned properties. In February 2021, Ordinance Number 2021-01 was adopted by Council, creating the Essential Services Advisory Board, or ESAB. Led by Chairman Ken Cox, this board is comprised of residents with experience in law enforcement, fire EMS, engineering, accounting, and human resources. The ESAB was created to give our residents a voice and a forum when key policy and purchasing decisions are being formulated before they reach the level of the town council. Ordinance 2021-05 established regulations of trespass caused by the lighting and illumination coming from adjacent structures should that condition be objectionable to a neighbor or cause a safety issue from nighttime glare. Ordinances 2021-06 through 11 were established to address behaviors deemed inconsistent with the intended use of the town's parks and public spaces and to ensure that they remain appropriately available for your use. Our town once again made a financial contribution to the First Step Shelter, a nonprofit dedicated to the compassionate mission of assisting homeless individuals and families. We are very proud of Councilmember Bill Milano's continued participation in his role as treasurer of First Step. For the first time in almost 20 years, a review of our entire town charter was initiated in August 2021 and is expected to be completed by March of this year. The safety of our pedestrians remain a priority. As such, the town commissioned a comprehensive safety study of key intersections and crosswalks. The results were presented at the August 2021 meeting, and the suggested modifications were implemented. Thanks to the perseverance of our town manager and administrative staff, our town pursued and obtained grant funding in excess of $800,000 from St. John's Water River Management and $214,000 from Port Orange for improvements along Ponce de Leon Circle. These improvements included a gravity sewer system, stormwater, and supply improvements, as well as a new street. Factoring in the grant funding, this critical project cost our residents approximately 10 cents on the dollar. Although Ponce Inlet is a small town, we have big goals when it comes to meeting the recreational and safety desires of our community. Working with the River to Sea Transportation Planning Organization, we anticipate that federal and state grant monies will be the primary funding sources for future improvements to the sidewalks along South Peninsula Drive. Sea level rise continues to be a major concern for all coastal communities. During 2021, in partnership with the East Central Florida Regional Planning staff, the town's risks, vulnerabilities, and resiliency have been analyzed. A final report that will be used to guide future decisions for development, infrastructure projects, and adaptation to sea level rise is anticipated early this year. Improvements to our community center, Ponce Preserve, and Elbers Park were also made during 2021, enhancing both the utility and beauty of these facilities. Notwithstanding the pandemic, housing and property values continued to prosper in 2021. Over the course of the year, the town issued 13 building permits for new single-family homes. A total of 1,178 permits were issued, and our staff conducted 2,625 inspections with a pass rate of 96%. Our staff works cooperatively with contractors to meet the requirements of the current Florida building codes, which ensures the health, safety, and well-being of our residents. New over-the-counter permitting procedures have streamlined the process for less complicated projects. Council approved increased staffing and capabilities for our code enforcement division to help ensure compliance with our short-term rental regulations and other quality of life ordinances. In April 2021, Elizabeth Caswell was appointed to fill seat 3 when Mary Haas retired after serving for 9 years, 8 of which were as our vice mayor. Council gave special recognition to 3 citizens in 2021 for their long-standing contributions. In October, our firehouse was dedicated to Carolyn Sprague, who proudly served as a volunteer fire lieutenant. Council also approved renaming our boat ramp after Jesse Lindsay to commemorate his contributions to the history of our lighthouse, the Passetti House, and as a Ponce Inlet fishing guide. Council approved the naming of the Inlet Harbor Estates Pocket Park as the Kathy Griscom Park. Our Planning and Development Director, Aref Jelani, retired after 13 years of service. Mike Disher, who previously served as Assistant Director as well as our Senior Planner, assumed the position of Director effective March 1, 2021. This year's recipient of the Volusia County League of Cities Municipal Employee of the Year is Steve Dunlap of our Public Works Department. Our 2022 Ponce Inlet Employee of the Year Award recipient is firefighter Ray Plumley. We are so proud of them and fortunate to have them serving our community. Our Veterans Memorial Site was once again honored as the only regional site in Florida for the national event of Veterans Day 2021 and one of only 36 throughout the entire USA. Our Cultural Services Department, led by Jackie French, along with the invaluable assistance of community volunteers, co-sponsored numerous events and special programs within our town parks. These included a lecture series, guided painting classes, and programs with a specific focus for youth audiences, including the Children's Easter Drive-Thru, Halloween Party, and the best ever Christmas tree lighting and celebration. Events were also held by the Marine Science Center, the Ponce Inlet Lighthouse Association, and by various town clubs at the community center. And at 6 p.m. on January 26th, a town hall meeting featuring all 5 of your council members, as well as each one of our department heads, will be held at the community center. We look forward to seeing you there. This forum is intended to provide an update on current issues and a casual atmosphere for asking questions and voicing concerns. As we enter 2022, let me address those issues that are out of our direct or jurisdictional controls. The council and the town's professional staff will continue to work to ensure that your voices are heard at the county, state, and federal levels regarding issues that pertain to our beaches, water quality, environment, condominium safety, infrastructure, growth, flooding, and sea level rise. It is often said that our volunteers are the heart and soul of our community. To all of those who have so generously given of yourselves and volunteered on our boards, clubs, and organizations, let me personally thank you. If you or someone you know has been thinking about getting more involved in the community, please let us know. Guided by our visioning statement and our shared community values, Ponce Inlet is well positioned to continue its destiny as a residential haven and to preserve the peaceful way of life we enjoy by the sea. With our rich history, our beautiful landscapes and landmarks, museums, and the small businesses that serve us, Ponce Inlet remains a very special place to call home. As we begin 2022 together, I wish you and your family a healthy, happy, and prosperous new year. Thank you. Thank you. I am privileged now to acknowledge 2 awards recognizing 2 employees of our town. Although the awards differ as to their submissions, their review and who is competing for the award are both different and significant and cause for great pride by our town. One award is our town's 2022 Employee of the Year, which is an award program designed to recognize an employee who has distinguished himself or herself over the course of the prior year and is selected by a committee of his or her peers. This award is usually presented at this time in January of the year for the preceding year. The second award is not normally presented in January, but for cancellations due to COVID would have been presented last May. This is the Volusia League of Cities Award. This is the body that represents all the municipalities in our county, and the awards recognize outstanding contributions within the community. We have our 2 award recipients here this evening, and I would ask first that firefighter Ray Plumley meet me at the podium. Firefighter Plumley, congratulations. Congratulations as the Town of Ponce Inlet's 2022 Employee of the Year. We thank you for your exemplary work throughout the year, for distinguishing yourself with your commitment to professional training, your work ethic, your positive and caring attitude to all, and your integrity. Ponce Inlet thanks you. Have a beautiful plaque, and let me just read this for the benefit of everyone. 2022 Employee of the Year, in grateful recognition to Ray Plumley, firefighter EMT, Fire Department, for unyielding commitment and dedicated service to the town of Ponce Inlet, presented this 20th day of January. Thank you so much. Thank you. Public Works crew leader Steve Dunlap. Please come up, Steve. They're right here. Now, our Public Works crew leader, Steve Dunlap, he was selected by the Volusia League of Cities as Public Works Employee of the Year. Mr. Dunlap was selected for his positive, progressive actions and contributions to this community, displaying traits of a leader and warmth and caring to residents while promoting a high level of service. We thank you. Thank you.
Fun part.
Yeah, the truth.
We are now at item 6, the consent agenda. There are 4 items. Does anyone wish to pull any item for further discussion? Does anyone in the audience wish to pull an item from the consent agenda? Seeing none, I make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented. Second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. 7A, update on Ponce de Leon Circle Septic to Sewer Project, and a request for the approval of a change order. Our town engineer, I see that Brad Weiss is here. If you'd please come up.
Good evening. I am here for Andrew. Andrew is unfortunately has COVID. So
Well, you wish
he's doing fine.
to?
He's doing good. So,
All right.
So I'll try to take his place and answer the questions as best I can. Ponce Inlet Circle is nearly complete. The change order before you tonight is for some miscellaneous irrigation system repairs and such things that were not included in the overall contract. The amount is $6,796. It also includes a request for 30 additional days. Currently, we're waiting on pumps and control panels, and they're just basically delayed due to supply chain issues. And just like a lot of things in our industry right now, the contractor really has very little control over this, and the additional time was granted for that. There's also some additional work on the retaining wells around the lift station site itself. The main line is complete. The service laterals are complete and inspected. The paving is complete. However, I will say there are some ongoing issues with some of the slopes on the paving when we did the inspections. So there may be, we're not sure exactly what the remedies will be, but there may be some additional work that they'll be doing at their cost to correct those areas. So that's probably the best update I can give you. The revised final completion date for this project will be substantial in February 14th and final March 16th. Any other questions?
Does any council member have a question for our engineer? No. Does the public? Is there anyone here? There is a part of the request for an authorization for me to sign a 4th change order.
Well, yes, following the update on Ponce de Leon Circle, I think it was mentioned that we are asking for first change order number 3, which includes the additional 30-day extension for the project due to these delays, and also the first estimate, or the actual amount for 9 residents. The correction of the irrigation in that, and that amount is $6,796. In addition, there will be a fourth change order. So your options are either have another meeting in about a week for it to strictly to approve another change order, or because we don't want to delay the project, and we can't, honestly, or go ahead and approve a not-to-exceed amount for that fourth change order for this specific item for these irrigation repairs, and authorize the mayor to sign that as soon as we have that amount and prepared. So you do have a couple of options there, but we wanted to put forth the not-to-exceed, and our best estimate right now is $12,000, and it would not exceed that. I know we have, as of today, 9 additional property owners who have come forward, and they still have until the 24th, so there could be a couple more. So using the amount for change order number 3, I think $12,000 is safe. If you want to be extra safe, maybe add another $2,000 or something to that, or maybe make it $15,000, whatever. The cost is not going to increase based upon any not to exceed that you set, I can assure you of that. So yes, those are our 2 items.
Okay, so then, what we're looking for from the council right now is a motion, that could be one motion or 3 separate motions, but there's 3 action items. Other questions? Yes.
No, I'll make a motion when you're ready. You ready for a motion?
Anyone from the public wish to say anything? I do. No? Okay. I have something that I just wanted to clarify for the public. So this is just, I love this because this is a nice way for us to with administrative ease, anticipate what some of those expenses are going to be, but also not having it be a runaway train where we're just giving an open checkbook to our mayor to do whatever it is that she wants to do on Ponce de Leon Circle. My question is around, could there be other unknown things at this point? Could there be a 5th change order, things related not to our citizens' irrigation systems for which we might need to incur cost?
At this point, I think we're far enough along in the project that we can safely say there should be no additional change orders. This should be it.
Just to clarify though, at the end of the project, do we have basically a true-up change order where savings that you have will be reflected as well? Because right now, the change orders you've seen have all been about paying a little bit more, but I think at the end of the project, there's savings also, that there will be a change order to recognize that.
We'll do a reconciliation of quantities, every linear foot of pipe, if you have, 1,000 feet in the bid, and only put in 988, and we'll reconcile that, but that would be on the deductive side, and that would not require commission action.
Okay, all right, well, that's pretty standard operating practice, right? It's for these kinds of jobs. I guess what I was wondering is, might there be anything where we might think about raising that ceiling to give you and the mayor some more latitude? I just wondered if there might be punch list items, et cetera, that would come up that would save us this administrative need to come back through. That's all I was anticipating.
Nothing that would come up within the next month. The only reason we're asking for this one in advance is because we know the deadline for residents to submit is on the 24th. And we know specifically, this is for irrigation repairs. If there's something in the future that has to do with either that, I know we're waiting for a retention block, but we've got that already established in there. I can't imagine anything else at this point either.
Thank you.
Before I make my motion, I want to ask you a question. So on the second part of this, where it says not to exceed 12,000, you mentioned adding another 3,000 just in case there's some irrigation problems?
The only reason I'm suggesting that now that it wasn't in there is because we've already gotten responses back from 9 people. The amount we have for almost 7,000 covered 8. And we're still having a few more days. I wanted to make sure that you didn't have to have another meeting. So the amount you approve will not make the price go up. It's just making sure there's enough there to warrant not having a second meeting unless you want one.
Okay, in that case, I'll make a motion. That's okay, Mayor? Okay.
Yes,
Sure.
yes.
So on agenda item 7A, update on Ponce de Leon Circle septic to sewer project and request for approval of change order. Number one, approval of change order number 3 to extend the contract time to 30 days due to the delays receiving materials and to increase the contract price by $6,796 for the repair of residential irrigation system in the right-of-way impacted by project. Number 2, in addition, consideration of authorizing Mayor Pawitzki to sign a 4th change order not to exceed, I'm going to put $15,000 for additional residential irrigation repairs and right-of-way due to project for those residents who by the deadline of January 23rd.
Excuse me.
Second. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Israel.
Yes. Yes.
Mayor Pritzker.
Yes.
Councilmember Coswell.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Smith.
Yes.
Councilmember Milano.
Yes.
5-0 passes.
Thank you. Okay, agenda item 7B, and this is Resolution 2022-03, authorizing a supplemental appropriation in order to meet the requirements of House Bill 53 with the stormwater needs analysis completed by June 1, 2022. Janine, would you introduce this, please?
Yes, absolutely. If you don't mind, I'll just do a brief read of what I submitted for, we have a lot of people in the audience, and this is a chunk of information. Newly implemented legislative House Bill 53 requires each municipality to submit a 20-year stormwater needs analysis to its county government by June 1st for the compilation and submittal to the State Office of Economic and Demographic Research. This must be done every 5 years, beginning in I said 2023, I apologize, that's 2022. We're having trouble with the years in January. Unfortunately, the specific information regarding requirements for this was not available until November, just a few months ago. So we could not propose this item during the budget process of last summer. A countywide meeting was held for questions and to further discuss how to proceed with this process in December of 2021. I attended this meeting along with our Public Works Manager, Jeff Miller, and one of our engineers with Mead and Hunt, Andrew Giannini, as we all sought to fully understand these new requirements. And we completed a lot of the portions of this report internally, and between our Planning and Development Department, our Public Works Department, and our Finance Department. So everything that could be done internally has been done, and I have reviewed that. We have then obtained this scope of work from our engineering firm for the parts that we cannot do internally to complete this requirement. We do have funding available in the town's reserve fund, as was mentioned earlier, as this amount, the amount in there being 7 months, certainly exceeds the minimum of 3 months required, well exceeds that. And while I normally would not bring forward something asking for a supplemental appropriation, I want to describe that a supplemental appropriation is reaching into your savings account. A transfer of appropriations is taking money from, say, your legislative budget and moving it to your fire department budget, but it's already within your general fund budget. Supplemental appropriations are for those, generally speaking, honestly, you could use it for anything you want, but generally speaking, they are for those items that are required by state law or emergency items like when our generator blew up behind the police department. That was a $75,000 expenditure a few years back. And it had to be fixed immediately. We were going into hurricane season. So that's when you do a supplemental appropriation. This as well, I did apply, I mentioned this at least during the budget process when we didn't know exactly what it was going to cost. We thought it might cost as much as $100,000. I did apply for a grant for this. We didn't get it. And so, but the good news is, the amount actually that we need assistance with is just under $25,000. So it's a lot less than what we thought this could be, because again, at the beginning of this, we just didn't know what this was even going to look like, what kind of information was going to be requested, and the depth that we have to go or not go in this process. What they are stressing at the county level is that you do your very best, because the agency that we're submitting this to, when we go and ask for money for things in the future, they're going to be looking to see if there were things on our list that warranted it. They're looking at the plans. So we don't want to blow this off for the first one and then go apply for funding for a stormwater improvements project in a year or two and not having had this, whatever our true needs were. One of the best parts of this study, I think, is that we get an analysis of our current stormwater system, how it's really working, what maintenance we have, we will need in the future, and that will be very helpful information to have. So even apart from this being a requirement, this information is going to be very useful to Jeff Miller in our Public Works Department, to me, and to all of you in decision-making processes. So for all of those reasons, I bring this forward with a recommendation. I have a resolution for a supplemental appropriation, and I'm going to ask that you approve that, specifically in that amount of $24,940. And if you have any questions about the actual scope of work, we have Brad Blaze from Mead & Hunt, who will do his best to answer those for you.
Thank you so much, Janine. Does anyone have a question either for Janine or our town engineer? Yes, sir.
Well, Greg, real quick question. In the stormwater analysis, will it be all of Ponce Inlet, including Atlantic Avenue, since Volusia County runs Atlantic Avenue? I'm sorry, it's on. Can you hear me now? Will this include, I know it's all Ponce Inlet, but will it include Atlantic Avenue, since Volusia County runs Atlantic Avenue?
Yeah, it will not include those facilities that are under the ownership and operation and maintenance of outside jurisdictions.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions?
No.
Does anyone in the public have a question for either our town manager or one of us or our town engineer? Mr. Bullard, hello.
I'm glad you're here, Brad. This is a mind-boggling piece of legislation in the context of what we've been dealing with.
Welcome to the state of Florida.
Number one, as our mayor so ardently has attempted to do for entire service to the town of Ponce Inlet, is stop this crap from happening. And it's happening. We should know how to take care of our stormwater. We have one of the best engineering firms in the state of Florida. We've got a great staff. And this is going to some obscure, unnamed bureaucracy that's going to understand how good a job we're doing or how bad a job we're doing. I'd like to ask our town attorney, what if we just said, forget about it? Other than pissing off the legislature and maybe Volusia County, what kind of laugh do we get? Because this stuff has to stop at some point. We have to stand up and say, look, guys, if you want to do something that's been underway for the last 50 years and keep adding on and trying to second-guess local government that has been educated, that's grown up, most of the people were in grammar school when the Clean Water Act was adopted and have learned all these things along the way in service to the town. I mean, come on. Is there any way we can get real with the Florida legislature about this? So that's my question.
Okay.
What kind of legal wrath do we have if we just say, thank you very much, we have our stormwater under control, we know what the Clean Water Act requires, we have a superb attorney as a mayor who understands these things legally. Is there anything we can do? Because
If you can address that, yes, please.
I'm getting my creative juices flowing about all the possibilities. maybe the first one would be the governor seeing a dereliction of duty removes the officers involved who did not do it. That's the most dramatic example I can think of. There's of course a lawsuit. You could also be audited. There's a lot of possibilities. I'm not completely familiar with that law, but that's all things that can happen just from the government being mad at you.
So in the worst case, we end up negotiating our way out of it.
I know that the public officials might not view it that way.
And take us to court. I mean, I have been doing this, Brad's been, where do we start? I mean, certainly we'll get a good work product. If we do a per capita measurement on this, dividing our town population by Brad's speed, which is very reasonable. I mean, it's all basically keywords out of Google search that's in the legislation. Engineers and administrators know what these things mean, fill in the words and do it. But at some point, we've really got to understand that there's got to be a better way. And as I was about to say, if you divide the total population of the state of Florida, prorated to Ponce Inlet, and in fact, then what Brad's fee is, which I think is incredibly reasonable, because I know they do good work, it's $183 million for the entire state. Divide that by 10, just because we're small and intense, do it by municipality, what's it going to cost for the entire state? $18 million every 5 years to do something that's a hoop that everybody jumps through regularly all the time?
Robert, thank you. Okay, any other comments from the public? Okay, seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Madam Mayor, would you like me to read the resolution?
I'm sorry.
Resolution number 2022-03, a resolution of the town of Ponce Inlet, Florida, authorizing a supplemental appropriation to the town's budget for fiscal year 2021-2022 and providing an effective date.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, Dave, thank you.
Agenda item 7B, Resolution 2022-03, authorizes supplemental appropriation in order to meet requirements of House Bill 53 with a stormwater needs analysis completed by June 1st, 2022. Recommended motion approval of Resolution 2022-03, authorizing supplemental appropriation in the amount of $24,940 from the town's reserve fund to be placed in the Public Works Department budget for fiscal year 2021-2022.
Second. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Israel.
Yes.
Councilmember Caswell.
Appreciating an unfunded mandate from the state. Yes.
Vice Mayor Smith.
Yes.
Councilmember Milano.
Yes.
Mayor Pertzky.
Yes.
5-0 passes.
Thank you. We are at agenda item 8A, which is our request for a minor replat of 4915 South Atlantic Avenue to subdivide one parcel into 3 lots and to accept associated public drainage, access, and utility easements. Now, before we begin, if it's okay, I was going to look to our attorney to see if there's anything you would like to first say to us as a council and the public with respect to a quasi-judicial proceeding.
Yes, it's my understanding that it's been a while since the council had a quasi-judicial item come before it. And quasi-judicial means that the town council here is acting like it sounds like a judge, because the town created a law establishing the criteria by which a person can secure a minor replat. And the criteria is laid out in the staff report for what they need to prove to show that they're entitled to a replat. If they prove that and there's nothing going against it, then the town has to give them the minor replat.
Entitled? Entitled was the key word there. Entitled to a replat.
Entitled. If they've satisfied all the criteria and there's nothing that the town has that says they did not, or that they should not get it anyway, or something along those lines that is based in law, the town has to award that minor replat, or approve the application. Whatever the town's decision is, needs to be supported by competent substantial evidence, meaning more than like lay opinion, I think this is a bad idea, that kind of thing. So that's, and also, like a judge, if you have had communications about this application, you should explain those right now before considering the matter. And that's the basics of the quasi-judicial procedure.
Thank you very much, and we will begin. Adam is here from our planning department. Please begin.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Yes, Adam Mendenhall with the Planning Department. I am here to present the minor replat located at 4915 South Atlantic Avenue. The applicant is Ponce Inlet LLC, Zachariah P. Zachariah, who's being represented by Robert A. Merrill III, who works for Copco Law Firm. The applicant is requesting to subdivide this parcel, which is approximately 5.7 acres, into 3 equal lots. The current lot is located in the Ponce Park subdivision, which represents the south half of Lot 6 and all of Lot 3 of that original Ponce Park subdivision. In this application, because they are requesting to be subdivided into 3 lots, it does require that the town council does make a decision and actually hear this application. In review of this application, staff is required to evaluate several points that are listed in the LUDC, the Land Use Development Code. In the Land Use Development Code, specifically in 6.6.7 C, some of those items are, does the lot have access to existing public street? Yes, the subdivision of these lots will remain access and have access to the South Atlantic Avenue, which is, in this particular portion, is under the jurisdiction of Ponce Inlet. Will these lots have access to water and sewer services? And these lots, per staff's evaluation, will have access to water and sewer services that are available currently within 100 feet of these lots. Per the requirement of the Code of Ordinances 78-79, any lots that are within 100 feet of a utility such as water and sewer are required to connect, which they are. The other lots have to meet the size and density requirements of the LUDC. The proposed lots are actually meeting the minimum requirements as found within the R1 zoning district, which are minimum lot area of 10,625 square feet with a minimum width of 85 feet and a minimum depth of 100 feet. Each of these lots are approximately 83,000 square feet in area with a minimum width between 97 and 100 feet and a minimum depth of 873 to 876 feet. So they all do comply with that requirement. The number of lots that they are proposing cannot exceed the amount of density that the town has set forth in the comprehensive plan. In the comprehensive plan, we actually have identified that the R1 or the low density single family can actually have up to 3.3 unit or dwelling units per acre. This particular subdivision will actually put it right around 1.38 units per acre. So it's well underneath that density requirement as per the comprehensive plan. This particular lot is actually granting the town for public interest and use drainage, utility, and access easements, which are going to need to be accepted by that separate instrument. As far as the other criteria for these lots, the other last one is that they are not doing any kind of subdivision that hasn't been done to this particular Ponce Park area within like the last 2 years. The last subdivision that was done was over 25 years ago in this particular location. With that being said, this project was taken to the planning board, and acting as our local planning agency, they did review and are recommending approval of this project, and did find that it is consistent with our comprehensive plan and LUDC. So staff is also recommending that, based on these findings, that this council approve the subdivision and also accept the drainage access and utility easement by way of separate instrument.
Thank you. I just have a question. Notice was properly provided, right?
Correct.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions of our planning department at this point? Because I'm also going to ask the applicant to come up through their attorney. Does anyone have any questions for him? Okay. And I'll get to public comments, not yet. Is the applicant here? Hi.
Good evening, Jessica Gallup, Law Firm, 149 South Ridgewood Avenue in Daytona Beach, Florida. It's my first time appearing before you all, so thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
Thank you. I just wanted to thank town staff. They were fantastic to work with. You've got a great staff report in front of you. We're really excited that we went through this process with them, and we're just here to answer any questions that you all have.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions of the applicant's attorney?
No?
No? Okay. Now, at this time, I will ask if there's any public comments. If anybody wishes to ask any questions, is there anybody out there that wishes to speak? Ask any questions? Okay. Now, seeing none, what I'd like to do is see whether council would like to have a conversation up here. Are there any questions, or are you prepared to just move forward based upon the staff report and reading all the documents? Does anyone have any questions? No questions? Okay, no questions. If it is acceptable, I will make the motion. Is that acceptable to everyone? Okay, fine. Okay. I move that the council approve the following findings. Number one, applicant Robert A. Merrill III on behalf of Ponce Inlet, LLC, in care of Zachariah P. Zachariah, owner of 4915 South Atlantic Avenue, Ponce Inlet, have requested a minor replat to subdivide one parcel into 3 lots and to accept associated public drainage access and utility easements. That section 6.6.7C1 through 4 of the Land Use and Development Code sets forth the minor replat requirements, all of which must be met for there to be an approval of the application. Based upon the testimony of the principal planner, Adam Mendenhall, the staff report with its findings attached to agenda item AA, which shall be incorporated in this record as if set forth at length, and the testimony of the applicant through their attorney, the application meets the criteria of the LUDC section 6.6.7 for a minor replat to subdivide one lot into 3 lots and is consistent with the comprehensive plan. That certain standards of basic fairness have been adhered, the parties received notice of this hearing and were able to present evidence, cross-examine witnesses, and have been informed of all the facts upon which this council acts. Therefore, based upon these findings, I move to approve the lot located at 4915 South Atlantic to be subdivided into 3 lots and to accept the associated drainage, access, and utility easements by way of the separate easement instrument, with the applicant responsible for all recording fees. Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Mayor Puritsky.
Yes.
Councilmember Coswell.
Yes.
Councilmember Israel.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Smith.
Yes.
Councilmember Milano.
Yes.
5-0 passes.
Thank you, and I want to thank everybody. I want to thank the parties, the attorneys, our planning department. Thank you so much for making this happen in such a smooth manner as it unfolded. So thank you so much. Okay. We are now at 9A, Ordinance 2022-02, bicycles, electric bicycles, motorized scooters, and micro-mobility devices. I would ask the town attorney to please read the ordinance by title only.
Ordinance number 2022-02, an ordinance of the town of Ponce Inlet, Florida, amending Chapter 74, reading Article 4 of the Ponce Inlet Code of Ordinances regarding use of bicycles, electric bicycles, motorized scooters, and micromobility devices within the town's public right-of-ways, sidewalks, and paths, providing definitions, permitting procedures, safety standards, and enforcement, providing for codification, providing for severability, providing for conflicts, and providing for an effective date.
Thank you. This is our second reading, so do any members of council wish to comment or ask questions?
I do.
Okay.
Well, first, I've read this several times, and being an avid bike rider I am, I have several issues with this whole ordinance. First, let me say first that I read an article that said there's more than 300 million electric bikes worldwide. E-bikes will be the world's road by 2023. And you can see that already in Ponce. The bikes, a lot of them are rentals, but there's a lot of them here. These are my issues. We want to set the speed limit for 15 miles per hour on the sidewalk. And this ordinance includes bicycles, electric bikes, etc. How are we going to give somebody a ticket that's riding a bicycle that doesn't have a speedometer on it? I mean, that's one problem I see. Second problem is if there's such an issue with the bikes, why don't we just make the speed limit 10 miles per hour for everybody on the sidewalk? That's a safe speed, and eliminate the issue of speed. Chief, can you come for a second? I'd like to ask you a question, if I may, Mayor.
Yes, of course.
Good evening. Good evening. So, a couple quick questions. You know, I'm all about law enforcement and making sure everything's right. Is it my understanding that you can't issue a ticket to someone that's going less than 5 miles over the posted speed limit? Is that right?
For a vehicle, that's correct.
Well, a bicycle is a vehicle, right?
I don't believe it's under the same motor vehicle category. I would defer to Jacob to see if we could do that.
You say a bicycle is a vehicle? I believe a bicycle is a vehicle.
It is.
Under the statute.
So there's one issue we have. So if you have the posted speed limit at 15 miles an hour, that means you can't issue a ticket until they're doing 21 miles an hour.
Well, Jacob, correct me though, is the ordinance at 10 miles an hour?
So the ordinance, no, but also the ordinance isn't the state statute. So if you're enforcing the ordinance, it's a different deal than if you're issuing a uniform traffic citation under the Florida statute. Well, the ordinance is its own system, its own regulatory system.
Okay.
So just to clarify then, I'm the layman and here too trying to kind of run interference. So you're saying that under state law, the 5 mile per hour buffer has to be provided, but under a town law, that's not necessarily true. If the speed limit is 10 miles per hour on the sidewalk for an e-bike and somebody's going 12, our police officers could write a citation.
Correct, and for most, I believe it was most areas, it was 10 miles an hour, and some places could be designated as 15 miles an hour, or the other way around, one of those two. I can't recall which one it was, but yes.
I think it was a default to 10 miles an hour.
Okay, and so, yes, the reason the 5 mile per hour buffer is based on Chapter 316 through 324, which is about the roadways.
The state statute.
That's the state statute.
Totally different than what we're talking about.
That's different from this law.
Perfect, okay.
Okay, so back to the issue of speedometers. I mean, if you stop someone on a regular bike doing 12 miles an hour, how are you going to enforce it? They don't have a speedometer.
Well, I think that's a good point. I mean, I think the officers have to use a lot of discretion. I mean, clearly, we're not going to be looking for somebody going 12. We're going to be looking for somebody that's flying down the sidewalk, probably at the maximum speed of an e-bike, which could be 30 miles an hour. So we're going to be looking for those reckless drivers, and again, using discretion. Most of the enforcement we do is verbal. We give warnings. We don't have to give tickets. But I think if we do see somebody driving recklessly and putting some of our elderly pedestrians in danger, then we could write them a ticket.
Okay, one other question. So we're going to enforce the speed. Now, I have a question about, and I ride a bike on the street, you see me, I'm out there all the time. So now we're going to start enforcing, because I see a problem if you don't, are we going to start enforcing people riding their bikes on the wrong side of the street, or they don't have the proper equipment, or they fail to stop at a stop sign? These are also issues that cause accidents and problems. I mean, are we going to bring that over to this ordinance and include it? Because I don't think we should do this unless we do the whole spectrum.
Well, we can, it's certainly up to the council, it's the council's will, whatever we do. I mean, and currently, in terms of enforcement, if it becomes a problem, then we correct it with enforcement. If it's not a problem, if we don't get complaints, you know, we see kids on bicycles all the time that don't have helmets, and we don't do anything about it. It's all about discretion. You know, if you see a family riding down the sidewalk, I'm not going to pull over and talk to them. They're having a good time. They're not riding recklessly. I'm not going to tell them about a helmet.
So if you see someone riding an e-bike at 13 miles an hour having a good time, you're just going to stop and say don't speed?
No, just what I said before. It's all about discretion. If they're not driving recklessly, if I can't tell the difference between 13 and 10, then more than likely we're not going to do anything with it. It's really just for those reckless drivers, and I think the ordinance itself just gives us a tool to act if we get those complaints. If, let's say there's one person in Ponce Inlet that loves to fly up and down the sidewalk on their e-bike, it gives us a tool to address that person.
I'm all for the safety. I've seen these e-bikes flying down the road and people walking their dogs, you know, or just walking and, you know, nobody says, excuse me, or left or right, they just zoom by them. So I agree with the ordinance. I just had those issues I wanted to clarify.
No, those are great questions, and in fact, Jacob and I were talking earlier, what's not in the ordinance is the fine or the fee to pay if we were to write a ticket. Now, it can default to code enforcement. We can write a ticket, and that person would have to show up in front of the code enforcement board, and then they would decide what the fine or the fee is. Or, by resolution, council can decide what a fine for speeding would be. I mean, clearly, the ordinance is all about speeding and keeping speeds down, but that would have to be for your decision to determine what that fee would be.
So that would be basically a town ticket that it's only enforceable in the town.
That's correct.
Well, maybe we need to set up some parameters for fines while we're doing this tonight, because I think code enforcement has enough to do with dealing with traffic bicycle violations.
What would be an appropriate range for a fine? Does anybody know? Because we could research this and come back with a resolution by consensus, perhaps, if that's what we would like to do to consider, since we don't have a fine, and that would have to be by resolution. How does everyone else feel about that? Okay, that's a yes. Can we give you that instruction that we would look into the range for a fine and...
Well, absolutely. First, we would have to know that you want the ordinance.
Right.
And then fines can be, you know, created and then updated, of course, over time. In the meantime, it would default to code enforcement.
Okay.
So it's not as if there wouldn't be anything until...
Right.
And currently, so the default is you can prosecute by non-criminal prosecution, which means you basically take them to court for a fine of up to $500.
Up to 500, okay.
And so that is, up to 500 is the current number. I am aware of cities that leave it at that and then leave it in the discretion of the enforcing officers, essentially, to decide what is appropriate. I'm sure, I don't know if the council wants to do that, but it is possible to enforce it as it is.
Okay. So we already have an enforcement mechanism in place, but we're looking for something else. Okay, let's first see if we're going to move forward on the ordinance. While the chief is up here, does anyone have any questions for him at this point?
Chief, most of the people that have been talking about e-bikes. Most of the emails we've received about e-bikes. My concern is...
Well, you have to talk close.
All right. Well, I got a better idea. My concern is the group of people that have a tendency to ride through Ponce Inlet on bicycles, and they're doing way more than 15 miles an hour. When they get to over by the lighthouse, where it's 10 miles an hour, they're blowing through there at 15, 20, 25 miles an hour on their bicycle. This ordinance will take care of them as well, won't it?
Well, I think that...
Because it says bicycles and e-bikes. That's my major concern, because you know how I feel about bicycles, and pedestrian comes first, bicycles come second, then your e-bikes, then your car, et cetera, et cetera. And, you know how I feel about what happened to me personally concerning bicycles driving through Ponce Inlet and not following the rules. So, You know how I feel about this ordinance because of that. So my concern is, will we start enforcing, when they come to that stop sign on Harbor Village Boulevard, and there's 30 of them, and they blow through that, which they have already done. They've already done. I've watched them do it since the sign's gone up. If a police officer happens to see it, will they pull the whole group over? When they don't move out of the way for a jogger that has to run against or with the traffic, and they're supposed to be, running against the traffic, and they're supposed to be running with it, and they don't move over for that bicyclist or the runner, and you see it, will you stop them?
Yes, so certainly that's enforceable. I think you're talking about two groups of bicyclists.
Exactly.
We have our family, we have our amateur, our weekend bicyclists or e-bike riders that will be mostly on the sidewalk. And then we've got those professional wearing the skin-tight spandex suits with the hats going.
That tore my meniscus and took away my ability to jog ever again.
I think the best answer is it depends. If it's a Sunday morning and it's 5 a.m. and you've got a group of 10 of them going down the South Peninsula and there's nobody there, would we stop them at a stop sign?
Absolutely not.
But on a busy Saturday when there's boat traffic and there's everyone else, sure, yeah.
Okay, that's my biggest concern, because, I go along with the e-bike, what Dave was saying, but my biggest concern is our biggest problem over the years. Now, maybe e-bikes may become that problem, but our biggest problem over the years have been our bicyclists that blow through this town like it's absolutely nothing, and they can do whatever they want. And when they go around that curve on Peninsula over by the lighthouse, it's an extremely dangerous situation, but they do it anyway. They never slow down to 10 miles an hour, and that's frustrated me for as long as I've lived in Ponce Inlet. So, and I noticed that's part of the ordinance, and that was the only thing I wanted to clarify.
Just to be clear, this ordinance is strictly for the sidewalks, correct? This is strictly for the sidewalks.
Well, it does.
So
It says sidewalks, in here. Pardon me? I didn't hear you, I'm sorry.
So Councilmember Milano is correct in terms of enforcement. So if someone is riding a bike on a town street, they have to abide by the town speed limit. So whether it's 35 or 30 or 25 or 10, they have to abide by that, just like a vehicle.
And that brings up something that we actually did discuss, and I know a member of the public did send us an email, and I wanted to hear your thoughts on it. Areas of operation. Within the ordinance, there is that one line, if a designated bicycle lane exists, the bicycle, electric bicycle, motorized scooter, motorized device, or micromobility device shall travel within the bicycle lane and not on a sidewalk except when necessary to cross over a sidewalk that is part of a bicycle or pedestrian path. The concern was to, Hi, I wanted both of you, that's good. The concern was we don't want to push a child off the sidewalk and go in the street, number one. And number two, I don't think we have any designated bicycle lanes.
Nope.
So the question is whether we could consider removing that portion, that sentence in the ordinance, and would that have an adverse effect in any way for either one of you?
Right. As we were analyzing that from the email, we actually came to the conclusion that it's, at this point, we're fine to actually strike that language and move forward. In the future, when the town gets ready to actually implement or put in some bike lanes, it comes to actually design principles and stuff like that to actually make those lanes a safe environment for anyone that wants to ride in them. And we can amend the ordinance at that time to account for that. But yeah, so we're fine.
You're fine with removing that? Okay.
So can I ask you a question? So many towns in Florida and across the United States they have signs on the roadways, they have bicycle decals on the roadway, which to me would be a safer factor for the residents, because now you're on the road. Now, we know we're allowed to be on the road, but a lot of people don't know it, motorists don't, and they get mad, blow the horn, cut you off. If we had those, I call them decals, but signs on the road that show bikes allowed, I think that would also be a safer factor for our bike riders, because now we're going to ask a lot of people to go off the sidewalk to ride on the roadways.
You know, in all the research that I've actually made regarding those, what they're called charros, where actually, you have the painted decals in the middle of the lane where the cars travel. There's actually, in all the reports, there's a little bit of a mix about whether or not they actually improve safety or not. In some cases, I've seen reports where they have had the decals where drivers have, let's say, become desensitized to it being there and not looked for bicycles that are there. And in some reports, if they don't have them there, then people are more aware of the bicyclists because they see something that's kind of out of the ordinary. The reports that I've seen so far for that particular element is, I haven't seen anything that's conclusive of one being safer than the other. The only problem at this point is that when you have bicyclists in the roadway, all of the reports do say that if you are in a roadway where the speed limit exceeds 25 miles an hour, that's when it becomes extremely unsafe for bicyclists of really any, experience level, because the different speed level between the bicyclist and the vehicle becomes too great for the person to safely be negotiated around or for them to travel.
So you don't believe that whatever you call them, the decals, I call them, it wouldn't be a help the bicyclists in town? I mean, because now we're going to have a lot of people that are going to come off the sidewalk and ride in the street.
In like on Peninsula Avenue, I think the Charles would actually be a great place for it to be. On Atlantic Avenue, probably not.
No, I'm just talking about Peninsula. I mean, Atlantic is suicide.
Yeah,
right. It's always suicide.
It's a scary place.
Yeah, it is. But if we could maybe add that to this ordinance we're going to do, or we put the decals, or whatever you call them, in the roadway, I mean, that might also benefit the town that we're looking out for the safety of the bicyclists that have to come off the sidewalk to ride on the street. I mean, I don't know what the attorney thinks about that.
Well, I'm just thinking if I can just add that perhaps you want to have that as a future agenda item. We can bring pictures of what these look like, and because I don't know if everybody up here knows what these look like. I don't know what these look like, or how this, when they're commonly used. So if you want to ask that staff look into that for maybe your next meeting, perhaps we can bring that back to you and you can have a discussion on it.
Agree with that? Yeah. Bill, you okay with that?
When you're ready, I'm ready to roll. Is it okay to add some comments here? Is this the point to add some more comments on that one? It seems to me that we're distinguishing tonight, we've got to pass an ordinance to get this max speed down on our streets. Job one, get it down, because right now it's a free-for-all. Anybody can do whatever they want within the state confines. We've got to slow it down on our streets. Job one. Job two is for us to figure out how we're now going to manage in a town where e-bikes and scooters, et cetera, are a part of our micro-mobility solution for this town. Much like the unfunded mandate of HB 53, this is another mandate from the state of Florida, applied with a broad stroke of peanut butter application to everybody in every town across Florida without respect to our infrastructure, the age of our population, or the culture of our town. We have no choice but to allow these vehicles on our sidewalks now. It's a brand new day. So the best that we can do for tonight, I think, is slow down the speed limit in the town, which I have a point of view on that too. And then the next thing we need to do is prioritize a number of questions around like how we're going to sign. Let's codify and at least have a shared understanding for our citizens around when will they be stopped? Are they required to have a speedometer? I had some, and now what about our regular bike rules in town? I did take the time to talk to and reach out to several citizens because I had one point of view on this and I feel very strongly about it, but I'm not up here for my personal feelings. I'm up here to represent the citizens in the town. So unfortunately, Joe and all his team there in the planning group didn't get a lot of input from people when it came. We had 3 separate meetings and nobody, I think one man came and spoke at these meetings. So the planning board is left to its own devices. And up here too, we're left to our own devices, unless the citizens tell us what you want and what you're concerned about. So if you have a point of view about how fast we should be going in town, please say so. My personal point of view on this is that 10 miles an hour is too fast. Here's why. We know human psychology. We know they're going to go faster. We know our own rules. We don't even blink an eye until somebody goes more than 5 miles an hour over the speed limit. 80% of the people in this town who vote are over the age of 50 years old. 40% of the people in the town that vote are over the age of 70 years old. I am very concerned about their ability to use our sidewalks safely. I agree with Mr. Milano that first priority will always be the pedestrians on the sidewalk, but I'm here to say that I no longer consider the sidewalk a safe place to be. and I am concerned about our citizens being hurt in this town by the excessive speed of micro-mobility vehicles on the sidewalk that is being thrust upon us by the state of Florida. It was for that reason, and also a reason of trying to get signage down in our town. Mr. Israel made a great suggestion. I think we should have that at another meeting, right? What are we going to do now? We've got this law. How are we going to sign it? How are we going to keep people safe? I think it should be 5 miles an hour or even 8 miles an hour, because we can eyeball if somebody's going over 10 miles an hour. They certainly can look on their speedometer and see if they're going more than 10 miles an hour, they need to slow down. But if it's something more reasonable, like 5 or 8 miles an hour, I think we, as a max, we also cut down on our need to put signage every 10 or 20 or 50 yards in this town. All the signs popping up all over the place. If you haven't seen some of the paintings on the beach, given the new law at the Volusia County, well, you should go take a look at some of those lovely, lovely orange paintings we now have on our stairs at the beach along the end of town, telling us where the bikes can be and bikes cannot be. So my concern is, you put a speed limit down there that's 5 to 8 miles an hour, we know people are going to go blow by it. We know we've got people that come to our beautiful community to relax and take vacations, etc., not necessarily interested in following all of our rules, right? So I'm more concerned about the citizen safety over the long haul. We know people are going to go faster. We probably are not going to have good enforcement with 2 police officers on duty at any one time. Nobody's holding a gun to the sidewalk to see if somebody's going fast. I don't even know if our radar guns pick that level of speed and detect that. So for all of those reasons, I have concerns about the speed limit, and I am still against the max speed of 10 miles an hour because we know it's going to happen anyway. I'd like to put it down low, and then it's common sense clear to everyone when someone's going above and beyond. I also expect that, frankly, this is going to be more enforced by our citizens than by our law enforcement. So consider talking to your neighbors and think about your neighbor or talking about your neighbor's kids when they're zooming by your house at 20 miles an hour. That job's now going to be on you. So I just wanted to see if we could put some kind of parameters around the speed limit. But I really want to hear from the citizens on this because I feel like I stand alone a little bit on this one.
Would any other council member care to comment at this point?
Oh, yes, I'll put 3 cents worth in here. And one class of vehicles was only mentioned briefly, and that's the motorized skateboards and the motorized bigger scooters and the motorized hoverboards. And they can move faster than at 10 miles an hour also. In fact, one resident wrote an email that said they would prefer 5 miles an hour on the sidewalks at that point in time. But getting back to hazardous operation, there's that group of people who, on those vehicles that I just mentioned, love to go in and out of the sidewalk. And I would think that's a dangerous operation of that vehicle. They go in the drive approach, down the sidewalk, out the next drive approach, into the street, in and out, in and out. And if you're driving a car, you don't know which drive approach they're going to come out in and whether they can stay by the curb, and so that's a hazard. And the other one is when they're coming in and out, they're a hazard to the people on the sidewalk. So trying to get something that gives the police an authority to address those kinds of things is something we need to do, and if we need to refine it at a later date, we can certainly do that, but we need a starting point.
Do you have an opinion on the speed limit?
What?
Do you have an opinion on the speed limit?
Oh, I would support 5 miles an hour because I think 10 miles an hour is going to happen, and it's going to be 12 or 15, and I agree with Elizabeth down there that it, started, which will put more bicycles into the street. I'm not sure what it will do with the hoverboards and the other smaller skateboards, which you don't want in the street. So that becomes an issue, and you got to try it to see what it's going to do and adjust it if it's not quite right.
Okay, and then can I ask our police chief, if we were to go to 5 miles per hour, how, if any way, will it affect enforcement? Does it make it easier? Does it make it harder? Does it impact?
Sure, I mean, I think it would probably make it easier because you could kind of discern between the slow 5 miles an hour versus a 10 or a 15. There is, like the mayor said, there is the law of unintended consequences. Are you going to push more people into the street and cause more of a public safety issue if you have more bicyclists that when people want to drive faster on the e-bikes, that are gonna now go to the street, they have no experience, they're older.
Right.
That's a challenge. So I believe there's just a lot of moving parts that I think you have to think about. Like Councilmember Caswell said, you guys represent the town, I represent public safety. Public safety would say go as slow as you can and keep everybody safe, but I do worry about the law of unintended consequences. So in terms of enforcement though, we do have radar that can capture that. It can capture whether it's you're in a vehicle or stationary radar, or we have a mobile, it's called a Falcon, and you can put that on the sidewalk.
What are your concerns if we were to slow it down, is push more people out into the street?
That's off the top of my head, that's the one thing I'm thinking about. You know, it's, like I said, you have the professional bicyclists, and then you have the weekend warriors that just bought their e-bike for Christmas, and now they're gonna take it 25 miles an hour down South Atlantic or South Peninsula. But would you create a safer sidewalk? Yes, you would. So that, I think that part is addressed.
Okay, so a safer, because what I'm wondering, what I'm personally hearing, and we'll also open it to the public, is that as a council, we may be comfortable with a compromise of 8, because there's the 10, there's the 5, I don't know, is that it seems a compromise number. You see, that's something I thought you'd find palatable, but, all right, so if we don't have...
I have 2 questions and I'm done.
Yeah.
For Mr. Jacob, what's the liability for the town by us basically forcing people off the sidewalk into the street? Is there any liability to us?
Not that I can see. Tort liability, meaning getting sued for an accident or something, zero. That's sovereign immunity, as far as I can tell.
So if someone was in the street, got run over by a car, and they said, hey, the town made me ride the street, and I didn't want to ride the street, would that be an issue?
I'm sorry,
If somebody was riding the bike in the street, and they got hit by a car, and the person made the statement after they got hit, say, hey, I got hit because I was forced off the sidewalk and I had a ride in the street.
they were forced off the sidewalk by the law. I don't see any way that could possibly, the town would have sovereign immunity in that situation.
And just one other comment, and then I'm done. I understand what you're saying about the sidewalks, but 5 miles an hour, you basically fall off your bicycle. It's not a comfortable speed to ride at.
You're talking a 12-minute mile, Dale. I mean, really, I agree with you. I mean, I can walk a 12-minute mile.
Right. It's too slow to ride. 10 is reasonable for anybody. It's a safe speed. I mean, your braking distance is very short at 10 miles an hour. I don't think we should go to 5 miles an hour. I really don't. I mean, if the e-bikes don't like 10 miles an hour, they can ride in the shores, and they can ride where they want to ride. But I think 10 miles an hour is a reasonable speed.
Yeah. Okay. And I have to agree because, as I just said, if I'm doing my math right, if I'm doing 5 miles an hour, it means I'm doing a 12-minute mile. Yeah. Right? If when I was jogging and I was running a 7-minute mile, I would be pulled over for jogging too fast. I didn't think about that because I'm doing 8 miles then an hour. So my concern is, I think, I understand where that individual is coming from with safety of our community because of our little 6-foot sidewalk. But I think, as David said, you get to a point that you're causing more of a problem because that person's going to try and stay up on that bike doing 5 miles an hour. So I have to go with the 10 now. Let me come back and look at it.
All right, so I'm kind of hearing back to 10, but perhaps it's time to open up to the public for the comments by the public. Okay, so the gentleman in the gray shirt, second. Thank you, and please state your name and your address for the record.
My name is Tom Haynes. I sent you all an email, and I have extra copies if anybody wants one. So I'm going to just go over what I all sent you. I've been riding the streets of Ponce Inlet for 10 years. So we came here initially on vacation. I've always had a bike, and I currently have an e-bike. And you're right. I used to ride my regular bike 12 miles an hour. The speed limit thing. But the first thing I want to say is, as we all know, bicycle riding in Ponce Inlet is a great activity. It's increasing in popularity, and there's all kinds of new devices which are out there, including the electronically tuned one. I just saw a couple go by the other day, 2 old elderly folks riding three-wheel electric bicycles on the sidewalk. You know, and I think if you did a survey of some kind, you might find that the majority of people buying these things and riding these things are old people. You know, and you already mentioned about the age thing. I'm 73. I'm a Vietnam vet with 100% disability, and I really don't want restrictions on where I might be able to go on my bicycle. And I don't think speed is really the right approach to an ordinance. The town should really take a look at what you need to do to make bicycle riding safer, more fun, and more accommodated than it is today. Dumping the speed only addresses one issue. I mean, you have curves at intersections which are not appropriate. You have a sidewalk which isn't wide enough in a few places. You have other trails that you could actually put together that might make a lot of sense. So I attended 2 of these public meetings. I was the only one in attendance, and I might have been, and I'm sure I was the only bike leader as well. So I don't know if you did anything else for public input, but I think you need to do a little bit more than that. And I think bicycle riding as a whole in Ponce Inlet is the topic you should approach. I actually think the Florida statute is more than appropriate at this point in time. What else have I got here? Anyway, so I think you really should focus on gathering some more input. I don't know if you put a coalition of bicycle riders or e-bike riders together to ask them questions about how do you do it, how do you behave on it, what can be improved in Ponce Inlet for bike riding. So I have 3 suggestions. One, you know, when you come into Ponce Inlet, your license plate is red on your automobile. Can you do the same thing with a bicycle? On the sidewalk, get one of those devices to find out who's riding when and how much. The other one would be is like you did for the resilience survey. It's just send a town questionnaire about who's got an e-bike, who's going to buy one, how old they might be, and what improvements that they might suggest. What happens if you found out that 90% of the e-bike riders are 75 years old? I mean, they're senior citizens versus kids playing around with those skateboard things. And maybe the police could patrol the sidewalk a little better. I mean, I don't know if they do that today, but I ride it all the time. Now, I also, Volusia County has an ordinance that they're looking at as well. So I recently went to the Florida statute, Fish and Wildlife statute, and the U.S. Park Service statute. Every one of them say an e-bike is the same as a bike. And all the same rights and privileges are granted. So I don't quite understand where Volusia County is going, because it seems to be a very narrow interpretation of whatever. Anyway, I also will say, and I hate to be critical, this little process that you go through for public comment on this ordinance, I mean, it was a little painful. You know, this is the 3rd time I've been up here. I've never been asked a question, never been contacted, and you know, are you really looking for public comment? So anyway, I'll end there. And I'd be glad to volunteer on a council or a committee or whatever. So I think you have my...
So I'm going to be the first one to ask you a question, since you're never going to answer the question, okay? So how fast do you ride your e-bike?
Less than 10 most of the time.
Less than 10?
The sidewalk's too bumpy to go any faster.
Okay.
And when I had my regular bike, I went about the same speed. The sidewalk is too bumpy to go any faster.
So is that a comfortable speed if you were right at 10 miles an hour?
Sure. Yeah, and a lot of times I go 7 or 8.
Okay.
And the other one is, if you're standing here and a bicycle goes by at 5 miles an hour, you think they're going 50. When you're getting close to someone on the sidewalk and they're going riding a bicycle, it seems a lot faster than it probably is. I honestly don't think the speed's an issue. I really think you should focus on bike riding in, Ponce Inlet. Thank you. And if you end up with a speed, I don't think the speed limit's a thing, but I just don't think it'll solve it.
Thank you.
All right, okay.
Thank you, Mr. Thank you. Thank you.
Now, is there any, I do want to say first, I think you and I did speak on the phone, and I've received quite a bit of literature from you, yes. Okay. Is there anyone else? I saw another, quite a few. All right, yes.
Good evening, thank you, Council. Rick Fees, I live at 46 Ashley Court, Seagull Landing. I'm also a bike rider. I don't wear spandex. I don't have an e-bike. I have a 3-speed bike. Answer your question, I can go about 12 miles an hour with a good tailwind. It's out there. I totally agree with what the gentleman just said. We need to look at this comprehensive because we're mixing issues. The people that I see riding are, as he said, older people who are not in spandex and are not blowing through. The people that are blowing through are not, I'm not saying there aren't any residents, but they're not typically residents. They're coming from the north and they're coming through town. I also realize that people go in and out, but that I do that at times, and there's a reason for that. Because I respect the pedestrian that's sitting on the sidewalk. And if there's a pedestrian, I'm going to take to the road. I'm going to try to do that with caution and the best ability that's out of there. But yes, it means I do go out on the road to respect the pedestrian and come back in after I pass the pedestrian. We also have to look at what's going on with pedestrians. We have pedestrians who are sitting with headphones who have no knowledge of any traffic that are going on around there. So you try to be polite and say, excuse us, can we get by? Those types of things. They're totally oblivious. Now, they have a right to do that. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but that's a public safety issue as well. It's been proven when people are walking around going through traffic and they can't hear traffic noise, that's a problem. So I think a more comprehensive approach, as the gentleman said, to look at what is the issues we're really trying to solve is the answer rather than trying to just solve it tonight. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Question, if you would, do you prefer the sidewalk before the street if the sidewalk is available? Is that your first choice?
I feel safer.
Okay.
I'll be honest with you, because it's just not being in the traffic and I'm not going that fast.
Thank you.
I prefer the beach, but high tide doesn't always cooperate. Low tide doesn't cooperate.
Thank you. Thank you very much. There was, yes, please come up. Thank you.
Hi, Lucy Old, the Towers. And I respect those that have them and that they do respect people that are on the sidewalk, but most of them don't respect the people on the sidewalk. They fly by. And I walk them and ride on the beach, same thing. The bikes are coming down from the rental place up there, most of them, up at Dunlawton, and they get them, and of course they want to come here because there's no cars, there's no, and they whiz by, I mean, fast. And when the tide is high and the sand is there, they're coming close to you, too close. And I just don't, we need to respect the people that are walking the dog and are walking the sidewalks. I'm 74 years old and I respect that you ride your bike, but when I'm out there on the sidewalk, I don't want somebody going 10 miles an hour past me. I think you should be on the street. I definitely think there's a place on the street for the bikers. And if it's too dangerous for you on the street, then we need to slow the cars down. Because they're flying by, and the truckers. So, that's my view.
Thank you so much. We appreciate that. Yes, gentleman in the back.
My name is Dave Lyle. I am co-owner of Daytona Electric Bikes. So basically, there's a few things I totally agree with. The speed limit, 10 miles an hour, as you mentioned, on a bike, riding under 10 miles an hour is almost impossible. As you said, the demographics in this town are 50 and over. I have sold probably 100 bikes to Ponce.
If you did not get her name, go get it.
Because they come, as soon as they come in, it's just amazing how many people in this town. And that's just what I've sold, not what they've ordered on, Amazon or from the bike companies themselves. I don't really know if to make any comments like that, but my thing is the demographics. Everybody that comes in our store is usually 45 and older. We do get, families in with children and such, but I really don't want to see them riding on the street. If the children are under 12 years of age, we put them on a bike that has two seats on it, so somebody can ride in the back. I don't really want that parent on the street with a child on the back of their bike. Streets are very narrow down this end of town, so, fortunately, my bike goes about 27 miles an hour, but that's what I ride on the street. I don't ride the sidewalks. Thanks. Have any other questions?
if you move a little bit closer, I think you're going to be okay.
Okay, so,
Try it now.
how's that? So pretty much, I'm saying that, but when I do ride on the beach and everything, and when I tell everybody, when we have a runner go out, I pound it into their head that the speed limit on the beach is 10 miles an hour. I tell them they will get ticketed, they will get kicked out of the beach. And I also tell them not to ride in the water, but that's a whole different story. So I'm kind of agreeing with the gentleman who came up first. Everything he said was like spot on, pretty much what I wanted to say. So I don't want to repeat all that, but just kind of, I understand it all. My thing is don't let the few ruin it for everybody else. Let's not have a reverse eminent domain here. And that's the problem. You get the people out there who are riding fast, and I can tell you, it's not just the renters. It's a lot of the owners that live in this town, live in the shores, they get their bikes because they come in and talk to me, and they tell me about riding on the bike 20 miles an hour, or on the beach 20 miles an hour. It drives me nuts, because they're the ones who are going to ruin it for everybody. Other than that, and if you guys have any future questions, feel free to contact me. Come in the store, give me a call, whatever. Because unfortunately, I missed the past 2 meetings on this, because I wasn't aware of anything going on. So I'd like to be involved from now on, in one way or another, if things continue, or, you want suggestions, you have questions, I have questions, so I would greatly appreciate it.
Well, thank you very much. Does anyone have any questions? Where are you located?
Dunlop Avenue, right beside Starbucks and Genesis.
Okay. It used to be,
The bikini shop.
Bikini shop.
5 years. They disappeared.
Yeah. Well, I just wanted to ask you a question. You say that it's almost hard to maintain control of a bike at 5 miles an hour. Agree. It's hard for me to maintain control of myself when I'm running 5 miles an hour, let alone a vehicle. So I guess what I'm wondering is, suppose that we had an 8 or a 10 mile an hour max speed limit in town. We had talked about not only imposing the maximum, but there might be some spots in town where we would need to go slower. We know we've got to go slower in some parts of town. And we'd have to have appropriate signage for that. Is 5 even possible, or am I putting the citizens at risk by imposing a 5 mile an hour speed limit?
I want to say between 5 and 10. It's like the gray area right there, where to keep you.
Well, isn't it true basically that it's not just all balance, it's friction? So if you're going too slow, you're going to fall off the bicycle, correct?
So it's just, it's just kind of, so there's that gray area between 5 and 10. Where,
So we couldn't enforce 5, because golly, people couldn't go 5.
Right, even a regular bicycle, you can't. 5 miles an hour, it's pace.
Right. And we wouldn't enforce 5 anyway. We'd be looking at enforcing 10 north. Maybe, if somebody calls it in.
But it's just kind of and I agree, like, it's just, it's a big area. Because like I said, I really don't want the few to ruin it for the rest.
Do you have speedometers on your,
Almost all my bikes have speedometers.
Okay.
So,
They're electric, right?
you're correct.
The regular bikes don't.
Some bikes have lights, we don't do overnight rentals, so we don't have to really worry about that.
But they're allowed to ride at night.
I do 5.
Okay, so bike's got to be back in by 5. Okay. Great. I love the location of where you are, of where your business is. It's perfect.
So do I.
I have one more question and I think it's something that Gary raised some time ago. You guys know this, I don't know. What's the difference between our normal population and how much it could swell to during tourist season? I know there's a difference in those numbers. Is that number?
the numbers is our registered official residents are somewhere in the low 3,000s. But if you take the number of housing units we have, and if they were all filled and permanent residents, we'd be somewhere between 9,000 and 10,000 people here. And so they come and go. So at any one time, anywhere between 2,500 and
9,500 people are in this town. And at various times, that changes the whole traffic pattern, and it changes the number of people. And what Bill said earlier, the pedestrians came first, and we have, I would guess, almost as many dogs in this town that get walked on those sidewalks as we have youngsters on bicycles. In fact, probably more. And so you get people with multiple dogs, you get people with multiple leashes, and you get bicycles moving at a high speed. That's trouble. Sooner or later, that's trouble. So the same elderly people that are on those bicycles are also sometimes walking those dogs too.
I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Is there anyone else? Yes.
This is great.
A woman that just raised her hand.
Michael Raj, 15 Marsville North. I'm not aware of the state law explanation. Is it that all these things are now considered vehicles and are allowed on the sidewalk?
There are two new state laws that went into effect relatively recently saying that they are considered bicycles and the operators of these vehicles have all the rights and duties of a bicyclist, but then allowing for some local regulation of that right.
Okay. And then does the state law state which one of these devices is allowed on the street?
I believe they do say which are allowed on the street, but I believe, so there are some that are definitely not allowed on the street, such as toy vehicles, which are things like the motorized skateboards and such. Bicycles are allowed on the street. I believe e-bikes are allowed on the street if they are a certain, e-bikes are allowed on the street. Other things are not allowed on the street, like certain personal mobility devices are not allowed on the street. But the town can't regulate the street because of the preemption.
Okay.
For the most part.
And I go with the chief on this. There's no way to regulate everything that you want. But if you see somebody doing something reckless, that they can see that. So then they can stop them, give them a ticket or warn them, whatever they're going to do. But there's no way that you're going to make laws that everybody's going to follow. They just don't do it. I agree with making the speed limit law and putting up the signage because it will deter some, it will awaken something in them to say, oh, I guess I better do what they ask. This community, by the way, I don't believe that we should turn this into a bike haven. I understand people like to ride their bikes. Kids that like to ride skateboards recklessly go to a skateboard park. There are parks in Volusia County where you can go ride your bike and zoom around and have a good time. I don't think that Ponce Inlet is the place for that. The streets are too narrow, the sidewalks are too narrow. I believe the pedestrian should have the right of way. It does in most states. So I don't agree with, let's open this up and do all these things to have more bikes, more bikes. If it's difficult and less people will do it, that's a good thing in our own town. If we go along with that attitude, then surfers might say, well, I want to go surfing more, but there's sharks out there. So why don't we do something about that? Or I have an ice skater, or I have a snowboard. So why don't we go in and do a snow? You can't accommodate everybody. And I think you should think about even a town the way it has been, which is enjoyed by most people is why they come here. It's charming. If you're going to get a bunch of bicycles in here, and like you said, there's groups of people that come down here and zoom through here, you're not going to be able to stop everybody from enjoying what they need to do. I agree with putting the laws at 10, maybe, and then the chief decide who's being reckless. The officers of local police. We don't have, a lot of police, but we don't have a big area. If you do more that invites bicyclists and e-bicyclists and all that down here, like we did for 21 Beach, you're going to get more.
Thank you, Mike.
Well, just your comment that the sidewalks are narrow, I would like to remind that we are working very hard to make Peninsula an 8-foot sidewalk, 4.5 miles long. And if we do that, we need to have something before that happens in the next 3-4 years, that will be should not become a bike speed area to take a 4.5 mile ride right down an 8-foot sidewalk, because it'll still be full of dogs and older people and 3-wheeled bicycles and et cetera. So,
And I would like to point out that the beach, which is wide open, the county said 10 miles per hour. So, there's somebody else here? Yes, please. I'm sorry, I just didn't see you.
It wasn't bright enough.
Just a quick point of clarification. Who yields on the sidewalk to an e-bike or a bicycle? For instance, if you're walking from the south to the north and you don't hear the e-bike or you don't see them, who's supposed to yield? The pedestrian with the child or the e-bike?
Always the e-bike.
Can we have the chief come up?
Thank you, because I've had a couple of times when it's been kind of iffy, where I don't hear the e-bike, or I'm with my grandchildren on their bicycles, we don't have time to move, and all of a sudden we're caught in the bushes. So I just wanted a clarification.
well, let me ask you a question. Since I heard Ponce de Leon Circle, how was the construction project down your street? Did they do a reasonable job?
It was beautiful.
Yeah. I have a question for you, too.
It was going very well.
I have a question for you, too. Do you have a recommendation in terms of a speed limit? The state law says we must allow these things. The only levers we have are speed limit and perhaps jurisdictional areas where we might decide to go slower.
No,
That's all we get.
I don't know. Okay. I ride bikes. I've ridden bikes in Europe and have grandchildren who are learning to ride a bike. We don't have any e-bikes of any sort, so I really can't say, what I would propose.
Well, you have the smoothest street in Ponce right now. It's great riding.
Yeah, and everybody's finding out.
Yeah, Chief, are you able to address the question?
I believe so. I think pedestrians always have the right of way. E-bikes and bicyclists have to yield to pedestrians.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you. Are there any other questions for
I just want to make one comment before Joe gets up and speak. To the woman back there that just spoke, I missed your name, but Lynn, I missed your name, and thank you, Liz. But years ago, we started talking about the 8-foot sidewalk, and committees got together, we talked about it, and I made a comment one time saying that I would love to have the 8-foot sidewalk because I'm really concerned about the bicyclists that come up behind me that I can't see. And I got told by a citizen, just get off of Peninsula and get on Atlantic. So I do most of my walking on Atlantic and the beach, but I still love to walk that section from Harbor Beach Boulevard down to Calumet, and I usually turn up there. And I agree with you. And I do wear a headphone, but I'm also looking behind me all the time, strictly because I don't know what's coming up behind me. Because most of the people will not get off the sidewalk when they're coming. They will continue walking the sidewalk. They'll ring a little bell. They don't make a comment. And yes, pedestrians come first. The safety of every citizen of Ponce Inlet comes first. But that pedestrian walking, whether it be with a grandchild or a dog, that person on the bicycle, I finally got off of Peninsula completely because these two people would always ride their e-bikes and they'd always be coming behind me. And I said, this is crazy. So I actually moved off of Peninsula. You don't see me walking Peninsula that much anymore. So thank you. Thank you very much.
Joe Villanella, 46 Janet Drive. Just a suggestion. Joe Joe Villanella, 46 Jana Drive. It sounds like we also could probably use some type of minimal education regarding bicycle riding and so forth. Just something that came to my mind was the Bicycle and Pedestrian Action Committee group that's part of the TPO. They have a lot of literature, a lot of stickers, a lot of information that's available that in a situation where one of the officers may pull someone over, perhaps they could hand out some of this literature to the offender, explaining the rules and regulations for bicycle riding that may be pertinent to the issues that we're looking to address here in town. So that information should be available free. And I believe that there are also stickers or these vinyl things that could be attached, that be laid on the concrete or on the roadway that'll give you a speed limit or a direction for the bike to go. Information like that should be available through that group.
Thank you very much, Joe. Education is quite key. Are there any other comments? Yes. Oh.
I have a question again. When did they decide that the motorized bicycles were okay for the beach?
Oh, the county? The county passed the ordinance in November. October, I believe. November.
They're only okay to be motorized when they're in an area where there's cars can ride. When they're on the regular beach, if they're not pedaling, they can't be there. So they're only allowed on the motorized areas.
Okay, so if they're not pedaling.
Then they're not supposed to be on, no.
Exactly.
They're not supposed to be on the no-drive beach.
Wherever there's not a drive-on beach, wherever there's not a drive-on beach, it's supposed to be pedal only, not bicycle.
Maybe they should tell the gentleman that ruling. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I just want to say a few things before we talk further and then have a motion. And I want to thank all of our citizens for coming in and providing public input, which is something that we need. This is what I would like to focus on, is as a council, we have a responsibility for safety. And it starts with balancing the interests of our residents, whether you're a bicyclist, a walker, a senior citizen, a child. We have a lot of interests that have to be balanced. And we are hearing from people that would like to prohibit e-bikes, from the town of Ponce to others that don't want any regulations whatsoever. And we want to put in place safeguards. And this speed limit is what is a suggested miles per hour by our chief of police. And I don't want to substitute my judgment to what is safe for our residents, because there are a lot of interests at stake. It's not just the bicyclists, it's not just the e-bikers. So we have statistics that actually were part of the whereas clauses of the county ordinance that we saw last month to show the kinds of bicycle accidents. And I do believe we all know from a common sense point of view that there can easily, or there can be an accident between a bicyclist and individuals walking. I do believe that we have an obligation, we have an affirmative obligation, all of us, to our residents. And this ordinance, if passed, it's a reflection of what we as a community, through our representatives, may believe to be appropriate. Like anything else, if we find it's wrong, if we find that it's not enough or it's too much, we can always come back and reconsider. But for our purposes, for protecting the safety and the welfare of all our residents, I personally would like to move forward with this ordinance.
I'm ready to make a motion, but I have a question about the ordinance. On page 1 of 7, the fourth paragraph down, it says establish a maximum speed of 15 miles per hour. I'd like to see that struck and make it 10 miles an hour.
I'm sorry, where are you reading?
On page 1 of 7, The ordinance, on the fourth paragraph, the last line where it says establish a maximum speed of 15 miles per hour.
But that, Dave, that talks about the state statute that authorizes us up to, so we should leave it in here.
All right, so the letter we got from Mike this year is when we're going to go with the 10 miles an hour.
That's in this ordinance, 10
In this
miles.
ordinance, okay, that's fine, I just want to
Yes.
double check that.
Yeah, the state came out with their number, and then the planning board and all of our groups inside came back and said,
Okay.
now how does this work for us?
Well, it's in the ordinance, that's what I figured.
And I would like also to point out, Dave, on page 2, if we all want to agree to remove that sentence on line 46, it was suggested by a resident, and I agreed with it, and I know the police chief and also our planning representative here this evening, they were, it was acceptable to them to remove on line 45, Dave, if a designated bicycle lane exists, to remove that line.
45?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Line
okay.
45 through 48, the sentence that begins on line 45 and ends on line 48.
Right.
Page 2 of Exhibit A.
Yeah, we don't have bicycle lanes, so.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Ready to make a motion?
Yes, please.
Okay, give me 1 second here. So agenda item 9A, ordinance 2022-02, bicycles, electric bicycles, motorized scooters, and mobility devices. I make a motion that we pass this ordinance as it is.
As amended.
As amended.
As amended, right?
As amended on second reading.
Yes, on the second reading.
Okay.
I'm still seconding it.
Okay.
Okay. A roll call, please.
Did you get as amended in there to remove
Yes,
that?
as amended and second. Thank you. Thank you, Karen. A roll call, please.
Councilmember Israel.
Yes.
Councilman Milano.
Yes.
Councilmember Smith.
Yes.
Councilmember Caswell.
No.
Mayor Pritzker.
Yes.
4-1. Passes.
Just to add on to this, I think we should bring to the next agenda the fine violations, the structure of the fine violations. We should talk about that next meeting.
I agree.
And perhaps a broader education plan for the town, which it seems like our citizens want around, now that we've got this new world, how do we all live within, what are the bike street best practices? Do we have to get off and cross the crosswalks with them now, like we do on regular bikes? So just some kind of those rules of the road.
And we may not even want to consider, I know the item's further down, but we may even want to consider a little addendum to our manual that's going out, talking about the rules and regulations that just got passed. Just something to think about.
Would bring that up under that item. I'm not sure, they may have already been printed, but if you would, just bring that up when we get to the welcome packet. Just to clarify, so for your February council agenda, you want to see a fine structure as it relates to e-bike citations. You want to see an education plan for notifying our citizens of these new rules. And you also, Councilmember Israel, you had mentioned something else, and I apologize, but I wasn't sure exactly what it was, something about putting
Signage for the roadways.
And that signage that's physically on the roadway, that's painted on the roadway?
On peninsula on the roadway, yes. It's a bicycle signage. Shows a bicyclist like they're riding a bike.
Okay. So if that's agreeable, then we will focus our attention over the next month on getting those things together for you.
Thank you. We're up to 9B, Ordinance 2022-03, creating a rental property maintenance program. I'd ask our town attorney to please read the ordinance by title only.
Ordinance number 2022-03, an ordinance of the town of Ponce, Inlet, Florida, amending the Code of Ordinances to create a rental inspection program, providing legislative findings, providing for exemptions for certain properties subject to state or federal periodic inspection requirements, providing for inspection fees, providing for enforcement, providing for conflicts and severability, and providing for codification and an effective date.
Janine,
Okay. If you would, I'll just turn this over to Mr. Hooker to answer any questions. This item is presented for second reading, and nothing was changed in it between first and second reading.
Does the council have any questions for Mr. Hooker on this item? The public? Does anybody in the public wish to ask Mr. Hooker or the council members any questions relating to this item?
Can I ask Dave just one question?
Sure.
Dave, when the inspection, is there going to be an actual listing of items that you're going to be looking for? In other words, a person that has a broken lock on their sliding glass door and they've got a board in there to keep the door locked, that would fail. That would fail your inspection. Right. In other words, that's an item that would be there. If they have a light switch that's a dead light switch and it doesn't work, that would fail the inspection. My whole point is that there are units throughout this town that have been used as rentals that don't, simple little things like that, and I've never considered them safe, but they've always been considered that what I can rent because, they can sleep in a bed. So those are things that are going to be, so you'll have an entire list of items that you're going to be looking for in this inspection? Wonderful, thank you.
Yes, it encompasses roughly 20 to 25 interior items. Lighting, light switches, plumbing, broken windows, screens, and things in that nature, broken doors, sliding glass doors, things like that. Exterior.
Back decks that have rotted woods on their floor. What about the decks that no longer meet the code with the distance in the spindles going down? They'd still pass because they were grandfathered in?
Yes, all our inspections has come through the International Property Maintenance Code, or IPMZ. And that's the universal housing code for the most part throughout the country.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. So if there are no questions of council or of the public, then I'll entertain a motion. Thank you, Dave.
All right, first I want to thank you for doing this. This is what this town needs for rentals, for inspections. Okay, item 9B, creating a rental property maintenance program. Council should approve of ordinance 2022-03, which is not presented for second reading and adoption.
Second. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Israel.
Yes.
Councilmember Caswell.
Yes.
Councilman Malone.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Smith.
Yes.
Mayor Kurtzky.
Yes.
5-0 passes.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you, Your Honors. Appreciate it.
We are down to citizen participation. If any member of the public wishes to speak on an item that is not on the agenda. Yes.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Listen, I wasn't really prepared for this when I came in tonight, and I saw the agenda.
Wait, hold on a minute, we need to be able to hear you. Here comes Ed.
Oh, hi.
Sure. Okay.
Can I go to the statement?
Happy Harvey, how are you, how are you doing? I didn't know that Ray Plumley was going to be given the recognition of firefighter of the year until I got here tonight. So I have a couple questions regarding the qualifications. Criteria, I understand, generalized criteria for that distinct award. But I would like to know what specific contribution Ray Plumley actually gave to this community to receive this distinction. And I do have reasons for this. So if you just bear with me. How was he nominated? What were his specific contributions? Who has the final approval? When was this decided? And was he really the best recipient, given that his recent comments to council were totally, they were pretty intense. They were very, he really came out against Derek George, and in light of the lawsuit, Janine Witt fired him. Derek George, it just seems to me that the timing is off, and it makes me wonder if it's a quid pro quo. I was really floored when I saw this. So I just really want to know, what did he do? What was so great? Because he's been a very vocal and visual presence as a firefighter, and I'm not used to that. And I shouldn't even see him on the radar, and I have seen him on the radar. So I'm not really I'm really not a cheerleader for Ray Plumley, so I just kind of want to know, what did he do that was so great? Anybody?
If I may, is that I actually sat down with our town clerk to understand the procedure and the process because I was told I would be presenting the award. So I said, tell me all about this.
Okay.
So all of your questions are the questions I had.
Okay.
And there is a process, there's a submission, there is criteria, and I don't think I have my specifics now, but,
Not on me.
and not on you either. We can provide that to you because those specific questions I did get answers to. There's,
Okay.
okay?
Okay, that's great, and I appreciate that. You know, I want to see the firefighters recognized and the police and such, but it just came up as he was kind of a polarizing figure, and I went, how many firefighters were nominated? Did we only get one, and it was Ray? Or Chief Scales? Does he know? Does the chief?
We have provide you with all of the nominations. We can provide you with the names of who was on the committee. We can provide you with the qualifications or the criteria that the committee looks at. I am not involved in the selection process, and you'll see that when you see the program.
Okay. But nonetheless, I just wanted to just mention, it's still, it just of all the people, okay, right on the heels of a big termination, we get the guy that testifies at council against his supervisor, and it ends up in a big lawsuit, and now he gets an award. I just think it could have been better.
Well, and that's where I would just encourage you before making any, leading any innuendos of any nature to actually see all the documents that are relative to it. The whole program is based on nominations by your peers, and so there were nominations from various departments, and they were reviewed by a committee of peers also.
Okay. No, it's not an accusation, but it is a speculation, and it does raise a question. It does raise a question for those of us that follow it. And it's a question mark. So that's good. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Cora.
Judy DiCarlo, 32 Caribbean. I'd just like to say an answer to Ms. Harvey's question. If you'd like to go to the c4pi.org website, we have the monthly reports of all of the fire department employees, including Mr. Homey, and the work hours and attention that he gives to detail has been very impressive. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who wishes to? Yes, Mike.
Mike Mirage, 15 Marsville North. I got the survey about the ADA compliant.
It's on the agenda, so you'll be able to speak then. It's on the agenda, and this is only for items that are not on the agenda.
Okay, well, I wasn't speaking to that. I was just using that as
an example?
Yeah.
Go ahead, sorry.
I just wanted to know going forward, who decides and what's the criteria for what items does the town get surveyed on?
Okay. And I think I can answer that. It's when council asks for it and directs it. Mike, that's when it happens, yeah. Anything else? Yes, Mark.
Mark Obeck, 4758 South Peninsula. First, on behalf of the Community Center Board, I want to thank Town Council for our wonderful bathrooms. They were hit last night at our soup and salad. And for those of you that attended, thank you for coming out and sharing some time with the citizens of Ponce. Greatly appreciate it. Those that didn't attend, you missed out.
Can I get my soup and salad now?
We had takeout if you were there.
Well, I had my tickets, but Patty had an operation yesterday and got sick.
Pay doesn't count.
I know. It killed me because that potato soup I heard was great.
It's about being visible to the people of the town, okay?
So I heard it's amended, they're going to protest next week because there's no air freshener or chairs in the men's room. Only the ladies' room, so we gotta fix that.
All I can say is the head of maintenance for the community center, is working on it, okay?
Oh, I know it'll be done then, okay.
Okay, good. Secondly, a suggestion for town council. Back in 2002, you had as part of the town's comprehensive plan, you had an effort to solicit community feedback and workshops. That's 20 years ago. A lot has happened in 2 decades. I suggest that the town council consider having another activity involving the citizens of the town to look at, okay, what's the next 20 years potentially going to look like? Because let's face it, the demographics of this town have changed. They're going to continue to change. Many elements associated with living in this town has changed. We just talked about it with the e-vehicles. So it's just a suggestion that I think it's 2 decades is a long time, especially in our country and how fast things proceed or progress. So just a suggestion that you initiate another activity like the one you had in 2002.
Thank you, Mark.
So I think that'd be a great idea for our town hall meeting to open that with.
Yeah, we're starting our town hall meetings, Mark.
Yep.
And it sounds like a good topic. Thank you. Anybody else?
Madam Mayor, if I may interject regarding one of the things you discussed regarding the survey and the power to do a survey.
Yes.
So in this specific case, I believe the survey was emailed by citizens for Ponce Inlet. And so the town council doesn't have the ability to make citizens for Ponce Inlet do anything because they are not a part of the town.
That is absolutely correct. We asked for their...
Right. So obviously we work together a lot.
Yes. But it was the direction of the council that we would ask. They could say no.
Right.
Yes.
They could say no.
They can absolutely say no.
And then the town could survey by other means, but...
we could.
But if they say no, we're doing it some other way.
We're doing it right. Very good. So that is a modified answer, Mike, okay?
Well, and let me explain how that email list is created. And it's a combination of every member of C4PI, and it is combined with our town email, and that's everybody that has signed up to get information from us. So to participate in something like that, go to our town website and sign up to get the information that you want to get. You don't get everything. There's a whole selection list of the items that you are interested in. Check what you're interested in, and you will get all of that when it's sent out. And that's the email address list that we use.
Thank you, Gary. Okay, we're done with citizen participation then. We will close that. We are now up to item 11A, Resolution 2022-01, amending the Town Council's Rules of Order to include a second opportunity for general public comment. I'd ask the Town Attorney to read the resolution by title only.
Resolution 2022-01, a resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Ponce Inlet, Florida, amending Resolution 2021-11, governing the rules of order for conducting town council meetings to provide for an additional citizen participation opportunity, providing for a sunset, providing for conflicting resolutions, providing for severability, providing for an effective date.
Thank you very much. And this is a second reading. Jimmy, would you like to introduce it? Oh, no, it's a first reading. I'm sorry. If you could introduce it, yeah. If you could introduce it, please.
Certainly. This resolution has been prepared pursuant to council authorization at the December 16th, 2021 Town Council meeting. Mayor Parisky, you had made the suggestion that council's rules of order be amended to include a second opportunity for public participation at the end of the meeting, and this was requested by one of our citizens, twice actually, and lines 135 through 144 are proposed for amendment as follows. Number 17 on the agenda, which is currently adjournment. That would be amended to state citizens' participation for issues raised during reports. The subject matters for this participation period shall be limited to matters raised or addressed during the reports of the town council, town manager, or town attorney. The presentation by the citizen shall be limited to one appearance for a duration not to exceed 2 minutes, unless the majority of the council feels some other time limit is appropriate, as determined by vote of the town council. If the council decides that a matter arising during citizen participation requires further review and discussion that cannot take place at that meeting, the matter shall be referred to town staff and placed on a subsequent agenda. All questions from citizens shall be directed to the mayor. And then it makes the adjournment section of the meeting number 18.
Thank you so much. Now, we discussed this at length in December, and I don't know if anyone wishes to comment or add. I just am very pleased because I think that we now have a council meeting where all of our residents and the public will have the opportunity to speak and to respond back to anything that we say from beginning to end. You can comment after each agenda item. You can speak at our citizen participation. And then at the very end, when we all have an opportunity to give comments and the town attorney may bring us up to date on certain things and the town manager provides us with information, you can then come up, but limit the remarks to 2 minutes and to what was said. So with that, is there anything anyone wishes to discuss further with this? Yes, Dave?
Are we going to be required to respond at the end of the 2 minutes? Or
No, because you see, our citizen participation, what happens is we do not have to respond, but we certainly can take the information and then handle it in whatever manner is appropriate.
I think it said the next meeting.
At the next meeting.
That's what it said.
Yeah. Well, we do not have to respond. Right. If that's your question, we do not have to respond then. Okay.
That's my question.
No, okay, does any member of the public wish to comment on this resolution? Robert?
I'm Robert Bullard, 4802 South Peninsula Drive, which I omitted from my previous testimony, if you want to call it that. Yes, let's do it. It's a good idea. It's long overdue. And I think it's perfect.
Thank you, Robert. Any other member of the public? Okay, seeing none, I'll entertain a motion. You'll make it. Thank you, Dave.
I'll make the motion. It's called Mr. Motion. So. All right. Item 11B, Resolution 2022-02, authorizing... Wait a minute, I'm on the wrong, oh, wait a minute, hold on.
I think it's 11A, Dave.
Yeah, 11, hold on. I got ahead of myself. Okay, sorry, agenda item 11A, Resolution 2022-01, amending the town council's rules of order to include a second opportunity for general public comments. This is the second, motion, right? We did it once already?
No, we just talked about it a lot in December. No, this is the resolution is on, and it's the only reading.
Okay. Okay.
Second.
That's it.
Roll call, please. I'm sorry, I didn't catch who seconded it. I said, oh, go ahead, you can. Fine. Thank you. Roll call, please. Councilmember Israel.
Yes.
Councilman Milano.
Yes.
Mayor Doritsky. Yes. Councilmember Caswell. Yes. Vice Mayor Smith.
Yes.
5-0 passes. Thank you. And thank you very much. On 11B, Resolution 2022-02, authorizing a transfer of appropriations, I would ask that our attorney read the resolution by title only.
Resolution number 2022-02, a resolution of the town of Ponce, Inlet, Florida, authorizing a transfer of appropriations within the town's budget for fiscal year 2021 to 2022 and providing an effective date.
Thank you. Janine?
Yes, actually, I'll invite Chief Scales up, but as he's making his way, I'll just remind you that, a transfer of appropriations different than a supplemental appropriation, as we did earlier tonight. This is moving money that is already budgeted within the general fund budget. This will be moving it from the legislative contingency for the current year, and that's designed to be a contingency able to be utilized into a department's budget for that utilization. So we're asking if you would like to use some of it to accept a grant for the purchase, basically, well, I'm just going to steal your whole thunder. I'm just going to turn it over now.
That's fine.
I can be so short with this. Go ahead.
Thank you. Good evening, members of council. Dan Scales, Fire Chief. This is similar to what we did last month with transferring funds from your legislative account or legislative budget to the fire department budget for the vehicle exhaust system. In this case, we're doing it for the remaining obligation for the purchase of a bunker gear extractor, which is just another term for a fancy heavy-duty washing machine that we can use to wash our bunker gear. When we originally spec'd the equipment out, it was probably well over a year ago, and unfortunately, as we all know, things got a little bit more expensive between now and then. The grant also does not cover shipping, handling, or any installation charges or accessories where you have to take care of those costs on our side, and this appropriation satisfies those requirements. So that's it in a nutshell.
Can I just ask you one question?
Sure.
Do we need to have special drainage? Because what you're washing is, the firefighters' clothes that have chemicals on it. Do we need special drainage for that?
No, we can use the regular drainage. The chemicals that we use to wash the gear actually neutralize any chemicals.
So then, if you did, I was going to say that we need to have more money to that to get that done, but if not...
This should be fine.
Good, okay.
Good question, thanks.
Are there any other questions on this? Does the public have any questions? Okay, seeing none, motion?
Motion for sure. Item 11B, a resolution 2022-02, authorizing a transfer of appropriations within the town's operating budget to accept a grant with match requirement for the purchase of a bunker gear extractor for the fire department at a cost of, appropriation amount requested $5,811.
Second. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Israel.
Yes.
Councilmember Caswell.
Yes.
Councilman Milano.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Smith.
Yes.
Mayor Kuritsky.
Yes.
5-0 passes.
Thank you. 12A old business. 12A old business, verbiage and placement for the marker sign for Kathy Griscom Park. Jean?
Yes, and I will invite Jackie French from our Cultural Services Manager to introduce this item.
Good evening, Council. At the November 18th council meeting, council requested staff work with the Cultural Services Board to design an appropriate monument for the Kathy Griscom Park, similar to which will be placed at the Jesse Lindsay boat ramp. Based on the size of the park, staff recommended a smaller marker than that of the Jesse Lindsay boat ramp sign. Provided the appropriate placement of the bench and trash receptacle within the park, the size of the park, and the current location of utilities, staff proposed locations to the board in coordination of the surrounding utilities. The board discussed both locations and proposed verbiage, which is provided in Exhibit 5, and that was provided by Kathy Griscom's friends, Rosemary Volts and Elvira Labar. I would like to point out on my staff report that this marker is not proposed to be included for this fiscal year, but staff may add it to the next fiscal year upon direction of council. And the recommendation from the Cultural Services Board is to approve the verbiage not to include a photo and the marker to be placed near the bollard as Exhibit 3 in my staff report, with a slight adjustment to the location of the trash receptacle at staff's discretion.
I have a question. First, very nice marker. Kathy would be very happy. Second, are we putting a light on this? Is there going to be a light on this marker? Because it's an awful dark area over there.
Not as proposed. I can look at if the council directs me.
I'm in congestion. It's a very dark area. I really think we should have a light on it.
I don't
think there's any electricity.
excuse me?
I don't think there's any electricity there. Is there, Dave?
I think the Ponce Inlet sign's lit up there, the one that...
Well, the only,
It's illuminated either, Dave.
It's not? No, I don't think so.
Not, that was going to be my said, if they have electricity there.
Yeah, it's going to be mine too.
You can do that,
Okay, well,
but I don't think they.
can we check? We can check. You can probably works check to see if there is there.
the town has electricity associated with the bollards that run nearby there. We do not pay for the electricity that's associated with the Inlet Harbor sign that is also there. Just as a note, we do not light up, I don't believe the Jesse Lindsay marker is intended to be lit, and neither do we light up the tramway marker in the Davies Park. So this would change what you've done with your other markers if you choose to add lighting to it, and it might make you want to revisit the others as well. Nonetheless, all of this can be considered during your budget process, so you shouldn't feel the need to make a decision right now because you don't have money for this in your budget right now. This will be proposed in your budget process.
Can we put the money in?
You can always add
we have a
money if
sum
you're,
left reserve.
it's just a matter of
What does the sign,
need
have any idea?
versus
What does the sign cost for the firehouse?
I was not sure of the pricing for the firehouse. I don't have
I'm
it.
just, if we're going to come back to electricity, I really would like to see if we could possibly make that adjustment down the road.
Well, I'm concerned to start discussing lighting without having it on the agenda for the public, because there's always a concern with additional lighting in the town of Ponce Inlet. So this is an...
I have no problem with it. I'm just saying, if we approve the sign tonight, which is what we're doing tonight,
Yes.
approving the sign, is to come back and look at the possibility of the lighting, since we don't have the other ones, I have no problem with this one not being lit, but the possibility of having the sign put up in this fiscal year rather than waiting until next fiscal year.
So, I agree with that. So I got a little suggestion, maybe until we do budget and see if we have the money in the budget to do it, we can get a professional solar light and put it there for now. They have lights that'll shine all night, or solar. I mean, it wouldn't cost much for that.
obviously staff will do whatever council directs.
Okay, well,
Can we take this as a separate agenda item for another meeting to go through? We probably should. I think we can move this one along.
okay.
And then, because we're asked actually to expand a thought process on lighting for our signs, and that could be a separate agenda item then.
That's fine.
Okay.
That's fine.
Separate agenda item.
That's
All right. So we're looking at, for the next fiscal budget, what you're saying, Dave, what is it you're saying that you would want to see it done now?
Well, for now, maybe we can purchase a professional solar light and just put that there until we decide what we're going to do about the power. I mean, you get one very reasonable, and it'll shine all night.
Oh, that's what you were thinking about doing. No, I was thinking of just moving this motion, this resolution through as is.
I'll forget about
Bring
it.
it- yeah.
Yeah, let's do the motion.
Okay,
Just
go ahead.
Want to do it?
Yeah, let's just do it. Make the motion, or you want to ask?
Oh, does the public wish to say anything? All right.
Yeah, cool.
I've been a member of the American Solar Energy Society since it was founded. It's a great idea if you don't have shade. You've got to have the sunlight on the collector, and I think that area is well shaded. It may not be workable.
We can pull the light up. That's right. Okay, we're going to wait.
Okay, we can look at the situation. I'd be glad to look at it with the Public Works Director or something and give him my opinion on it.
Thank you, Robert.
Thank you. Okay. All right.
Anything else? Anyone else? Okay, Dave?
Agenda item 12A, topic recommendation for the Cultural Service, Historic Preservation and Tree Advisory Board regarding the marker sign for the Kathy Griscom Park. Recommended motion, the Cultural Service Board recommends approving the verbiage and placement for the marker as described in the staff report from Ms. French dated January 11th, 22. I make a motion that we accept the advice and purchase the sign.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Israel.
Yes.
Councilman Milano.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Smith.
Yes.
Councilmember Caswell.
Yes.
Mayor Prisky.
Yes.
5-0 passes.
Mayor, before you leave this item, let me just get some clarification. So that motion was to accept the Cultural Services recommendation regarding the wording and the placement and the type of the sign, and then also to purchase it. Staff's proposal in the report was for a next year purchase. Is that, it doesn't say when to purchase it, and we don't have a price for it.
You don't have a price for it yet?
No, if we had a price, that would definitely be in the staff report. So we have not gotten any prices because we don't have a budget for it. So that's where I'm a little confused as to what you want.
Procedurally, let me just see, procedurally, what would be the appropriate, would we amend the motion? What would we do at this point to include to be purchased out of fiscal year 2022, 2023, and not this year?
Jacob.
I'm just wondering, procedurally, we made a motion and it unanimously passed, but we now want to include within the motion that the item that we just approved of needs to be purchased out of fiscal year 2022, 2023 budget.
So you'd like to amend the motion?
Just amend the motion?
No, so you could move to reopen and amend the motion.
Okay, so move to reopen and amend.
I move to reopen the motion.
Mm-hmm.
And you second?
And amend it
We have to vote.
for the funds for it to be purchased?
Yeah, and amend it so for the funds to be purchased in 22-23 budget.
Second.
That's good?
Funds to be provided.
Provided,
For the
yeah.
funds to be provided in the 22-23 budget. Okay. Very good.
Second.
You got a second? And then now you do a roll call, please. Your amendment.
Councilmember Israel.
Yes.
Councilmember Milano.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Smith.
Yes.
Councilmember Caswell.
Yes.
Mayor Pritzky.
Yes.
5-0 passes.
Okay, so we clarified the motion. Now let me also, if you wouldn't mind, get clarification on what you want for your next agenda, the lighting for town. You wanted this, or are you sending something to the Cultural Services Board to discuss lighting of all town signs? You said something about lighting for town signs on the next agenda.
I would suggest that the Cultural Services Board, they're our advisory board, let them look at all our signs and let them, and that would be my suggestion for the parks, yeah.
Okay.
We don't need a motion for that. Do we just send it to them? Okay.
I think we can just send it to them.
All right.
Okay, thank you, Janine.
Okay, so we'll send that to the Cultural Services Board, the discussion of lighting park signs. Okay.
Thank you, Jane. Okay, we are now at 12B, which is a continued discussion about the survey responses regarding the town providing ADA-compliant live streaming and videotaping of town council meetings. So, Janine, if you would.
Yes, and just today we did receive the responses, but let me do a brief intro. So, pursuant to council direction at the December 16th town council meeting, the town attorney that was attending that meeting, which was Patrick, worked with me to prepare a survey to determine if there was anyone who would benefit from the town council meetings being made available via ADA-compliant live stream video. That was the wording of the town council at the December 16th meeting. So the following question was prepared with input from C4PI as well. Dear Ponce Inlet residents, the town council is considering broadcasting non-interactive live streaming of town council meetings on the town's own website. Due to requirements within the Americans with Disabilities Act applicable to the town, live streams created and provided by the town would include closed caption service. Excuse me. In order to provide ADA-compliant captioning, the most cost-efficient service would cost the town approximately $20,000 per year. The private organization, Citizens for Ponce Inlet, has been providing live streaming services since July 2020 on its website and will be offering live streaming on their YouTube channel starting this month. Because the C4PI is subject to different ADA requirements than the town, and because the live stream it records and posts are not created or controlled by the town, its broadcasts do not include closed captioning. Through this survey, the Town Council hopes to gauge whether current residents of Ponce Inlet would use and benefit from the offering of town-published live streams with closed captioning. Your participation in response to this survey is greatly appreciated. The question was, would you or a member of your household use and be assisted by a closed captioned live stream of town council meetings published by the town on its own website? The response was a simple yes or no. The deadline for survey submissions was Monday, January 17th at 4 p.m. And the question was emailed by C4PI to everyone who had signed up on the town's website list. The results of this survey were just received today, and I did email those out to you, but I'll read them into the record as well. There were 1,176 surveys successfully emailed to individuals on the town's email distribution list. There were 207 responses to those surveys received. Of those responses, 30 people said yes, and 177 said no. That's all of the information that I have. Now, I do know that Citizens for Ponce Inlet did provide our staff with a 2-slide PowerPoint that they had hoped to address you at some point this evening, but at this point, this is your item too.
Thank you very much. Okay. So we do have a representative of the C4PI to come up. I don't know if you have any questions or anything you'd like to say right now amongst ourselves or to Janine or our attorney before we turn it over to the C4PI representative.
I just want to thank you for doing the survey so quick. I mean, it's one subject I really believe in, and I appreciate for getting it out done so fast.
Thank you, Dave. Okay. Mr. Cole, would you please come up? Thank you.
Judy DiCarlo, Vice President, C4PI. Thank you, Janine. You said half of what I was going to say already, so I'm not going to repeat it, but the numbers were accurate. But I did want to add something to that, and that is when we were investigating live streaming, we researched options about doing the words and on the slides, and we found a company called REV that does provide the ADA compatible captioning. It's live captioning is significantly more expensive and has more lag time between when someone types the words and it goes on the screen, and then it comes back again with corrections and things the next day. So this REV does the same thing. We could provide this information within 24 hours, but it costs $1.25 a minute, and a 3-hour council meeting might cost $225 instead of the numbers that you guys are talking, a total of $20,000 a year. This one would cost about $2,700 a year if you were to use it. So just some information for you to digest as you make those decisions on how to go about it.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
So the REV, basically the person that wouldn't be able to see it that night, it'd be the next day they could see it in streaming.
Correct. They can listen to the meeting, that we're live streaming now, and then if there was something of importance, they could have that. In thinking about this whole issue, there's a lot of information that goes into the decisions that you guys make, and it's not just at council. It starts at planning and central services and cultural, and agenda packets, I think, are really important. So, there's a lot that goes into it, and when you just say, I'm going to put words at the end of a town council meeting, I don't know that it solves a lot of the problems that you're talking about. But if we got if you received requests from someone particularly that needs it, the town's always there to provide that information, aren't they? Janine?
Certainly, we advertise any ADA accommodation that is requested, we will work with. I've worked here now for the past almost 18 years, and we have never received an ADA accommodation request for anything.
And I think looking at
we would work with it.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I was just saying, but we would certainly work with it, and we put that on every single agenda that we send out.
Well, and I think looking at the results that we see today, 30 yeses, we can say, well, if it's one person, it's necessary. But unless they have all the rest of the information, and people can listen to it for free on C4PI. I think if people needed the words underneath, they would reach out to the town on a particular subject, and even with this rev, you could break it out, I think, according to the timing of what people were interested in, and provide them with that backup information. So it's just a suggestion.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions?
Judy, I'm looking at the first slide here. So we have 1,176 that were delivered, and so we have a percentage of a little under 15% of people who indicate that they would be interested in it. Okay. Now, do you have any information, anything in writing or anything about this rev? Is there?
I haven't provided, I do. I have a slide.
Oh.
I don't know if it was there.
Oh.
The next slide actually is.
Oh, okay. Because, all right, then,
the next slide that I have just shows you the differences. I thought.
Okay. Well, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I wouldn't present that, but yeah, there are different, it shows the live and the next day, the differences, comparisons for what the cost is and what can be provided. So, in looking at providing the information, if you can do it per person who requests it, it's a lot less expensive and you're still getting, it might be a way to start.
So, what's corrections required? What does that mean?
Well, if someone's typing the information, as you're recording, as it's being recorded, there can be errors in that as well, and they'd have to go back and correct those errors to meet the ADA compliant.
Okay, thank you.
Let me think if there's anything else. The other thing I wanted to say too, Janine, you mentioned that we used the town's email list. We did, but we also took the C4PI email list and combined the two of them and then spit out the duplications and sent it to the residents. So we did send, we ended up, there were a couple that got bounced back and one that wanted to be taken off the list, but they still, we ended up with a considerable difference out of the almost 1,200 residents, to have 30 replies for yes, and then 177 no was kind of a clear indication that there were more no's than not. And we also were not able to determine how many people opened the email and just didn't respond to it. So we're hoping that soon we'll be able to have that in our surveys as we're improving the conditions.
This is very good anyway. This is good data for us because what I see is although the yes votes were not overwhelming, we should consider some accommodation for our hearing impaired residents. And if what I'm looking at is that, I'm sorry.
I think that, no, I'm sorry. I think that rev is a good example.
Well, ones that
could do.
That's something we could do, yes, because if no one asks for it, it doesn't cost us anything. If someone asks us for it, we're talking a significantly less amount of money. The accuracy appears to be better. We're talking next day to have it. And then once we have it, we can make copies for how many people ask for it. We can utilize it, possibly expand it to other boards. And if we do find that we are being asked for this, we have a budget process coming up in a few months. Maybe that's where we might want to look at something greater. This could almost be our way of finding out how much is this going to be utilized for a lot less money.
So, I forgot what I was going to ask. So, two questions. We don't know the 30 people that sent in the surveys. We can't contact them.
No.
Right, so
The town, excuse me, the town does not have the names associated with the emails. Our membership, we know who the members are, but we don't give out that information. That's private. But the town does collect, the sign-up that they were just talking about earlier, and that's when people, Gary was talking about people go on and sign up to be on your list. But the town does not maintain the name of that person associated with it.
So if we were to do this, and we did either the rev or the regular, we would know who's looking at it.
If we
decided to do this, we would know the 30 people that are watching it, to know if they're really watching it.
Not specifically. Unless, when you sign into a Zoom like we did before, then those names were indicated. And I don't know if that's a technical question.
Right.
If you're talking about, I don't know the technical issues. Right. Do you know, Jenny?
Well, actually, I was just going to say that it's probably not fair to ask those questions to you. Then we should bring Ms. Hugler up here, because she's the one that's done the research on the town's portion of the proposal. But what you've offered is a very viable alternative, as if they want to look at something that's perhaps a little more cost efficient and a good way to determine what is the real need in the community. Because if we are getting an overwhelming number of requests for this the next day, and we can make it available for every board, then we know that we need to start looking at something more and bring that data back to you. Then we would have names.
Well, there's a lot of people here impaired with hearing aids and are totally deaf. And I've talked to a lot of these people. I know several people, and I mentioned this to them, and they went, definitely.
And so the sign language is something they would know.
It's not, they don't use sign language, they're doing basically closed caption, right? Yeah, so it's closed caption.
I'm sorry, I apologize, my mistake.
So, for me, 30 people, that's 30 citizens that we're up here representing, and if they have the need to have closed caption, I think it's our responsibility to work something out and do it. Sorry, go ahead.
Yes, so the difference would be is what I had proposed was a live person coming into the meeting and actually doing it live. So you would see that closed captioning. And then, depending on how long your meeting is, that's how long it would take them to get you the corrections, they call them. But it's these live people, they're closed captioning at 95 to 98%. So,
really?
No, I'm talking about live. So if we were to do it live, we would be very accurate. Of course, that's going to cost a lot more money, and that's why this rev would be coming in the next day, going through their YouTube channel and doing the corrections. YouTube does automated. I don't know, Jacob, what's the, automated?
Right, automated captioning.
Automated captioning, which is not ADA compliant. That does not satisfy the requirement. So what they're talking about doing is absolutely, yes, absolutely wonderful. You wouldn't have it live, you would have it the next day, which is absolutely wonderful. It's a great thing too.
So, thank you. I have a suggestion. So, until we do the budget, why don't we do the rev, make a motion, do the rev, see what kind of feedback we get before next July or October, and then go from there.
Well, I think that's an excellent idea, because it will provide us with information we don't have right now, because people will have to make the request. We'll see the level of interest. Okay. Now, does anyone wish to say anything here? Yes, go ahead.
I wanted to clarify something. that so they're doing it next day, which means that the town would not be broadcasting it live.
That's correct.
I just want to make sure that was...
This is all through the C4PI.
Okay.
And we'd send out notification that we're going to be doing this, so people that need it will know it's going to be there.
And they know that they can request it the next day, and then it'll be ready.
And we can still request an accommodation, which already exists.
Right, that's what we have on all of our agendas. On your last page, you'll see it in the square box, the last.
Yeah, I like this idea. I'm gonna support it for sure. I guess when you go back to that last slide, when it talks about ADA compatibility, there's a difference between compatibility and compliance. Right now, we are not being held to ADA compliance, and any solution that we provide to the public cannot be ADA non-compliant, if you will, but we can be ADA compatible without being held to the federal requirement.
Right.
So this is a great short-term solution. I would suggest, however, and I think you are spot on with this, we do have a number of people in our town who are hearing impaired. We do have a number of people in town who are physically or otherwise disabled. We do have people in town who will never come to a town meeting. I think I'd like to get a better grip on, perhaps just as a citizen, as a council member, just get a better understanding of the kinds of disabilities and the numbers and the people that we're talking about. 30 is not anything, but 15% of your population doesn't necessarily, or your voting group doesn't, in a survey, doesn't drive your results. So just be clear, it's compatible, it's not compliant.
Right.
And we're not required to do it yet. And if we are required to do it, I suggest we take a broader approach and look at something like a county-wide investment, because we're all going to be under the same umbrella, but we're not there yet.
I mean, and remember, this is only 1,000 some odd people. We have 3,500 people down here, so this didn't cover the whole town. I mean, maybe once the word gets out that we're doing this, it'll spread to more people, more hearing impaired people, which is great if it does. So.
Because we want the engagement.
Right.
We're trying to encourage engagement.
Okay, anything else? Does the public wish to address this? Anyone in the public? Okay, and what would you need from us at this point, Jane, to move forward with the program, the REV program?
Yes, basically a motion that would, just authorize staff to utilize that. I assume you will be tabling the proposal that's in front of you from staff.
Yes.
Indefinitely. And so I would suggest a motion to table that indefinitely and instead authorize staff to, on a case-by-case basis, pursue, I'm trying to think, the REV program, is it REV? Is that?
Yeah, REV. And this is through just to be clear, this is through the Citizens for Ponce Inlet. So basically the town will be cooperating with the Citizens of Ponce Inlet so that their videos that they independently are making, the town can basically assist its hearing impaired residents through these.
That's what the motion has to say, or no?
No, I'm just trying to understand, because it sounds like we would come to some kind of cooperation agreement with C4PI.
Well, we already do. They already stream for us at every meeting, so it's already in the process. So this would just be adding the rev to the, if I'm correct, it'd be adding the rev to the streaming. Is that correct?
Well, and this is actually the first meeting being streamed, being live streamed. It's been recorded for quite some time, but a year or so, year and a half.
Yeah, what I'm envisioning is we're recording them. People are looking at it live. The next day, those people who need closed captioning can contact the town and request it, and that could be through the YouTube. We could get the rev through the YouTube channel, right? Did I explain that right? I need my technical people here because I'm not sure how you get there from here.
Tech is coming.
Technical support.
Okay, Howard Pruitsky, 4757 South Atlantic. I do the technical support for the C4PI. So basically what happens now is that camera is recording YouTube video. If the town should get a request for the captioned version, we will send the link to that stream up to Rev. They actually break it apart. There can be 15 people working on it simultaneously. They'll stitch it back together and they'll put up the captioned version. 99.9% accuracy. Because when they do it, it's on tape delay, they can stop, rewind, did I hear that right? When you're doing it live, it's hard to be accurate. The other thing is you saw one attribute called latency. If you've watched the news and you watch the captions, sometimes people talk and then you see the word 20 seconds later. There's a lot less latency when it's done by this company, Rev. The only thing I would say is that we're only running one camera. If we move forward, there'll have to be some investment in more technology. I'm not comfortable with just one camera, there's no backup. I'm comfortable with 2 cameras or maybe 3 cameras. Because if it's lost forever. So I think the C4PI will work with staff about how to do it. I think it's a pretty good option. And you had asked, will we know who's asking? Yes, you'll know exactly who asked because the request will come into the town.
Good. That's even better.
Yeah.
Right.
And lastly, just make sure that if the attorney understands the arrangement, that everything is okay.
Right, and I want to make sure that we understand this is, you're recording it for your own purposes.
Correct.
You're using, under rights under the Sunshine Law, you're recording and streaming this video because the town itself can't live stream video without closed captioning.
That's what Cliff told me.
And so what I'm thinking about doing is an arrangement where we agree that if you've created a video and a citizen would like a closed captioning, a closed caption version of the video for themselves, then the town agrees to, if the town is funding this, the town agrees to compensate you or pay for the web service for the video that you've created. Does that sound correct?
Okay, so what would happen is if the town received a request, they would just send the link to the captioned video, which would be hosted on our YouTube channel. So they would just be making a referral. So the real issue is the funding.
Is the funding or is not the funding?
Funding is the real issue, because we're going to incur expenses.
And this is the service that the town is providing for the video that your independently created video. I'm just, because this is not, you're not our public relations arm, right?
Correct.
So it sounds like there might need to be some kind of agreement of some kind.
Okay.
Between some kind of contract to establish the funding there.
So we made a motion to do this and authorize for the town to send payment every time they do this. That wouldn't be legal?
I'm sorry?
In other words, if we decide to do this tonight and we authorize the town to pay for the rev every time we use it to C4PI, would that be legal?
Yes, we were just, from the staff level, we need some kind of agreement to establish the procedure, right?
Sounds good, yes.
But if the town sends the link, isn't then the town being involved in the ADA, whether it be compliant or compatible or anything? Will the link have to come from C4PI, even though we're providing the money?
So here's how I'm imagining this working. The town cannot provide communications, and I'm trying to not get into the nitty-gritty of the ADA, how the ADA requirements work. But the town cannot provide communications unless they are equal, as defined by the ADA, which means providing auxiliary aids. You're not providing anything at this point. The C4PI is providing it as is their right under the Sunshine Law. There's no agreement between the town and C4PI to do it. They're doing it. And if a hearing impaired resident, as a service to them, the town wants to provide closed captioning of C4PI's video, I think that makes sense because you're just helping.
So we would actually be providing a service for C4PI by sending the link because we're not actively involved in it at all. That's my concern. We're not actively involved in it at all.
The town is not.
Okay.
Right.
All right, so we have to table, initial, you want to do that?
You want me to handle this?
Go ahead, you table, then I'll make the motion if you want to do it that way.
Okay, you can, well, we are going to table.
Okay.
We're going to table, yes.
All right, so then I'll make a motion that we use Rev for the hearing impaired and authorize that C4PI will be paid every time they have to use the Rev. Is that good enough?
Do I need to say Rev, or do we want to say some outside party at their choosing C4PI?
If I can just make a suggestion, because I know this, when we're trying to make an adjustment and we haven't prepared, analyze it at staff level and brought it forward, so we're working this one on the fly. But the first thing I would do is table indefinitely staff's proposal regarding the town providing ADA compliant live streaming and videotaping of town council meetings. That would be one motion to table that indefinitely. The next I would make is simply to reference within the town's agendas, we ask that persons who require accommodation or to attend this meeting should contact the town, and we request 48 hours notice prior to the meeting, but we will amend that requirement, and if they contact us after the meeting, the town will seek the video from C4PI to obtain a closed captioned process of it. Again, I'm off the fly here too, so.
That's a lot to...
But I think that's what we're talking about, is we're taking what we currently have, and now we're saying we want to do an accommodation after the fact as well. We're not going to ask you to contact us 48 hours in advance. That's only if you need accommodation to get in the room. But we're going to expand that to include a closed captioning accommodation capability after the fact, upon request.
So maybe we should table what we have here, and then next month you bring us back updated ordinance so we can vote on it, unless...
I can do that too. Right.
Mayor, you think that's what you want to do? Or?
If you want to see a process before...
Yes, actually, that probably makes a great deal of sense. We can have the attorney's input on the way in this will work itself through so that we don't run afoul of any federal laws.
Right.
That's the first thing. So what I'll do is I will move to table the live ADA discussion and recommendations that are under 12B of our agenda. Second.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, motion, second, roll call, please.
Mayor Peritsky. Yes. Councilmember Coswell.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Smith.
Yes.
Councilmember Milano.
Yes.
Councilmember Israel.
Yes.
5-0 passes.
Okay, so then what will be done is that we'll have next month's agenda where we all, as a council, feel comfortable that we're moving into an area that we're not going to run afoul of any laws. We'll have a procedure in place. The C4PI will also know what it is that we're suggesting. And Mr. Carlo and Mr. Peritsky, I want to thank you, Judy, for all of the work for the C4PI and presenting it to us in this manner, and also coming forth with that excellent suggestion that we will explore further and hopefully use. So thank you.
Agreed.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much. Now we are down to 12C, which is an update and request for direction regarding the welcome packet distribution. Janine?
Yes, and I have to tell you, I have seen at least a draft, maybe it was the final version of the welcome packet. It is beautiful. It is absolutely gorgeous, and it is going to be something that I think, our residents, whether they've been here 20 years or, 2 months, will appreciate having. So that's been a 1.5-year effort, I think, of trying to make sure we got the wording right and we've got the departments laid out, and it looks very good. In addition, of course, we have the magnet created and updated with the information that we've utilized. For anyone who doesn't have a stainless steel refrigerator and can put it on there, or you can put it on a file cabinet. So we have that. I have also seen and a beautiful draft of the newsletter, which the town has contributed 22 pages to this 44-page newsletter. It is a beautiful layout, and again, it provides, I asked my staff to create articles for this edition, since this was considered to be the only paper edition, that would really inform and showcase our departments, provide a lot of information, provide the important information that we want to come out, and they certainly did so. So we have that along with the State of the Town address in the first 22 pages. The second 22 pages, that's all your citizen groups. That's your garden club, your women's club, your Lions Club, your Veterans Association, the Lighthouse, I think the Marine Science Center, the Animal Welfare Group, and so all of those are in the second half of this booklet. So there is this newsletter. I think everybody probably tried to do the same thing and get their best shine, because it's the only paper one, and it is it is also a beautiful document. So, but with that, we've run into a couple of issues, like anything does. We budgeted $6,000 to do the welcome packet, the magnet, the mailing, and get that out. We are still at approximately that, I believe, for those, as long as the paper stays about the same price it is now. We are finding out that there is at least a national paper shortage. And some of you may have experienced this in your businesses. The cost of paper is going up, and the availability of it. There is actually only one printer locally who has the capacity to do this type of work. Even this printer doesn't have enough paper to do this until probably the end of February. So we're pushing a time distance back to have enough paper to get this out. In addition to the paper shortage issues, with the pricing and the newsletter being included, it does push the price up. And right now, I think our price estimate, I had emailed out just for all of you today to have a chance with all three of these documents, the welcome brochure, the magnet, and the newsletter. We're looking at an estimate right now of about $18,000. The total available monies of what's left in the legislative contingency and what's in the legislative budget for this effort, those combined, you have $25,314. So within the legislative budget, it would not require a transfer of appropriations. It's already in the right budget area, but I want you to be aware of which line it would come from. That is where we are at. So we wanted to give you an update on the cost, make sure we have your blessing to proceed, and let you know that we could be a month out for the paper edition for everything because of the paper shortage that this country is facing. One more thing with the pandemic. And Jackie, I know I stole all of your thunder, but is there anything else to add that I missed? Okay. Any questions anybody has? How would you like us to?
Well, I think that Judy DeCarlo wants to show us something.
Hello, Council, again. I have to tell you, you guys haven't seen this yet, but Lauren and Lynn Alvinson, Lauren pretty much specifically created this newsletter this time. I don't know if you guys have seen it. We did a rough copy. It's not quite edited yet. But it gives you all of the town information in color. It has, like they said, 22 pages of the town. there, as well as all the clubs represented. It gives us citizens a good way of knowing exactly what's going on in town, how they can participate, how they can volunteer, and how they can sign up for the town's email list or the C4PI list. So, we're including a lot of really pertinent information. It's unfortunate we're dealing with a shortage, and we may have to change some of the information that we have in here, but we're delighted to have a young person on our staff capable of doing this kind of work, and she's been working really hard. So we'd just like you to consider keeping the newsletter in your mailing and doing it at a first-class rate so it doesn't get thrown away for all the citizens that have their mail forwarding. So, thank you.
The gal that does this is Lynn Albinson, right?
We have Lynn and Lauren Albinson back there.
Recognized, because, I think, and they're volunteers. You're not paid to do this, are you? Y'all volunteers? Thank you.
I hope you get community service hours for it.
Well, we want to thank the effort that went into this. It was so significant.
And I tell you, the CFPI board, these are two of our board members now, so we have really been blessed to have this kind of talent with us that are willing to work hard for nothing to make a difference in town. So thank you.
Thank you, Judy. Thank you, Lynn and Lauren Albinson back there. It looks from afar beautiful. So thank you. Okay, anyone have any questions at council for Janine or Jackie or C4PI? Anyone from the audience? Well, so we have a decision to make. I think we're being asked for direction to proceed with the mailing of all the documents, and we understand that the estimate is $17,957. Any thoughts? Any motions? Okay.
I make a motion that we approve the entire package at the $17,957.
Can I stop you there? Please don't choose the amount. Choose the not to exceed amount if you like, but one thing we know is the price is going to change.
Then I make a motion that we approve the printing and mailing of the magnet, the newsletter, and the packet, the booklet. Good enough?
Would you like us to say something not to exceed?
No.
Yes, I would say not to exceed 25,000. That's the.
How about not to exceed
Not to exceed 25,000.
Second.
Second.
Roll call.
Oh, Henry. Can I ask who seconded? I had three.
I second.
Councilmember Milano.
Yes.
Mayor Paritsky.
Yes.
Councilmember Caswell.
I wouldn't spend the $18,000 or $25,000 when I thought it was going to be $6,000, but I get it, and I'm going to try not to be such a cheapskate, and because they said yes, I'll say yes. But if it was my money, no, but yes.
Vice Mayor Smith.
Yes.
Councilmember Israel.
Yes.
5-0 passes.
It is part of your money, it's taxes.
And thank you, the C4PI. Thank you, Lauren. Thank you, Lynn. Thank you, Judy.
Well, if it makes you feel better, this whole thing will be written so anybody can read it unless there's another issue with ADA, so at least.
Just a side note, you were talking about paper. I just received a letter from the Daytona News Journal. Sometime in March, they will no longer be printing the Saturday edition. So, just something interesting.
Well, we thank you very much, and we know I would anticipate the residents really appreciating it, and it's a resource for them throughout the year, so thank you. We're up to 13A, request for continued support for the South Peninsula Drive Sidewalk Project. Janine?
Yes, and you do have a recommendation from your Essential Services Advisory Board. They voted unanimously to to support the town's continued application with the River to Sea Transportation Planning Authority. If you have any more detailed questions on that, we have Adam here, and he's happy to assist with that.
Can I ask a question?
Certainly.
So it says here that the total project's projected at $823,744. Now, I understand that this project's not supposed to go into action maybe for next 4 or 5 years. So obviously, with inflation and cost, this is going to go up. Has anybody done the numbers to see if the taxes were taken out to
They did a projectionary for each year within, Adam, can you explain that? I've seen that, and I think the last time we brought this forward, that there was a multi-year projection of increase.
Well, if there is, we'd like to see it. I'm sure all of us would like to see it, you know.
As far as like the financing goes, as far as like what's being budgeted, they take into account for like the grants and everything, the inflation rates as they go out up to a certain point. And part of that that was taken into that consideration was up until just last year, with the 10% match that the city was doing, they actually had TPO and the FDOT, they actually prioritized projects. And because of the 10%, we were prioritized a lot further out, so the funding is a little bit different. But now with the 15% match that the town granted, it actually pulled us up. So we're going to actually be going into the design phase around the 26, 27 year, 26, 27. And at that point is when a lot of that financing will really come together to say, this is where it's actually sitting at.
Well, yeah, but my question is, that's 5 years from now. This cost is going to be a lot more in 5 years, and I don't want the town to end up with a massive bill that we're not prepared to pay. So, I mean, we need to do some kind of projection. I know it's kind of hard when it's like, plywood's $75 a sheet now. You know how the costs are. So that's all my concern is, where are we going to be in 5 years, as far as being able to pay for it.
Yeah, I know there is a projection sheet out there. We can get that for you.
Okay.
And if I may, am I correct in stating that when it gets to the point where it's like, okay, we're ready to go, we could say no?
Absolutely.
See, we could always say no, and that was something that I've asked every step of the way, because I get concerned too, Dave. So, we can always say no.
Okay.
Well, and understanding, if I can add, the design portion of this is also going to have a great impact on the price. So until we get into that design phase, this price is most definitely subject to some changes. It might shrink, it might grow. Right now, concrete is at some of the highest it's ever been. And so whether it stays there or comes down, there's a lot of factors that certainly could, but we do have it was in the staff report last year. We can pull the last year's staff report on this. That's my recollection, that we had a multi-year within the staff report.
So, all right, so 5 years from now, they say, the money's coming, let's get ready. We're gonna be doing engineering reports and design way before that, I assume, right? We're gonna have that all done?
The design is scheduled in about 2 years, and that's also part of this process.
All right, so that's what bothers me. We're gonna do the design, and that's gonna cost a fortune, and then the fifth year gets here, okay, we're ready to do it, you gotta give us another $500,000. I mean, what's gonna happen? If we decide, if we say no, then...
Let me address that, please. And the TPO works in strange and various ways, as we know. They ask for that estimate every year, and it's very well put together by our engineers who are using the up-to-date unit prices. We're looking for 15%. That's what we have done. So if it goes up $100,000, we're paying 15% of that. And we still have the option to say that's more than we can afford. So, and it's been moved back 2 or 3 years at the TPO's request. That's in their money. So the total cost is in the neighborhood of $1 million a mile, which is $4.5 million, and it's going to vary depending upon the economy and the availability and the materials and everything else. The TPO is aware of that, and they're keeping track of it by requiring that estimate every year and a commitment from us that we're still interested in it. And we can say no at any year. So it's on its way, and we need to keep going.
Okay. Does any member of the public wish to ask any questions? Yes, Mike.
Mike Mirage, 15 Marsville North. At what point in the process do you contact the people whose property is going to be shortened or changed?
I think our planning representative will be able to share the information. Thank you.
As far as like when the properties get actually informed, that's going to be right at that design stage, and we definitely are making sure that we are going to get public involvement and make sure that we are reaching out to those who will be part of that improvement project to make sure that those residents are aware of what's happening and they can be involved in the design phase to make sure they're aware of what's happening. But again, that's not going to happen until like, again, that 26, 27 year when we actually get to that design.
Let me add to that, because that's slightly misstated. The public, the owners, will know when we're using part of our right-of-way that already exists. We will not be doing anything to anybody's property. So it's all within the right-of-way. And yes, will they use some vegetation that is on the right-of-way in front of their property? Yes, they will. But as I keep saying, that's a very good thing for all of the people that live on Peninsula and they have to back out on the peninsula. That extra 4 feet, 3 or 4 feet, that's going to be cleared for the vegetation will give everybody a better sight look up and down Peninsula. So not only are we widening the sidewalk to 8 feet, we are increasing the safety of getting in and out of your driveway. It's a good project. It's expensive, but it's going to change the look of Peninsula Drive quite a bit.
Yeah, another one.
Again, Mark Obed, 4758 South Peninsula. I'm also on the Essential Services Board and a member of the Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee in Volusia County. From day one, I was resistant to this whole project, but the fact is we need the design phase in order to determine what is going to be the impact. We don't know what we don't know. We don't know what properties may be impacted indeed. We don't know what options there might be in order to provide a safe environment for pedestrians and bicyclists. So that's why the board agreed unanimously to approve moving forward. So again, we find out what the impact will be. That's what the design stage will help us understand from a cost perspective and an impact perspective.
Thank you so much, Mark. Anyone else? Motion? I can make it.
Agenda item 13B, consideration of an amendment to the town's agreement with...
No, 13A, 13A, Dave.
All right, I'm turning my pages faster. Okay, 13A, request for continued support for the South Peninsula Drive South project. The Central Service Advisory Board recommends approval of the town's council's continued support for the South Peninsula Drive sidewalk project. I make a motion that we continue to support the project and continue waiting to see what the next move is going to be for TPO.
And if I would like to add, I think you're looking to have authorization to sign the letter, attachment 3, reaffirming our commitment? Is that the authorization you're seeking, Janine? You may want to add that to your motion, to authorize the town manager.
They also authorize the town manager to sign the agreement letter.
Second.
Roll call. Councilmember Israel.
Yes.
Councilmember Milano.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Smith.
Yes.
Mayor Prisky. Yes. Councilmember Caswell. Yes. 5-0 passes. Thank you. We're down to 13B. This is consideration of an amendment to the town's agreement with the Ponce Inlet Veterans Association regarding maintenance of the Veterans Memorial property. Janine?
Before you get started, I need to tell you a story about this, because this has brought to light some very interesting things. And first, you need to know that David and I are also members of the Veterans Association. And so when it got to the point where we were voting on things and discussing this with the attorney, this is what happens. When us two members, part of the Veterans Association, are voting on something that's coming to the town, and as members of this body, we are going to vote on it again, that raises all kinds of interesting questions about sunshine laws and ethics considerations. So, under the advice of our attorney, in discussing that, I did not participate in the meeting at the Veterans Association when the final discussion and the vote was taken to send it here, and have been advised not to discuss it in this body, nor to vote on it one way or the other. Which then causes an interesting problem, because I then have to explain why I could not vote this tonight, which I will do next week. So, just so you know.
Thank you, Mayor. Anyone else?
Vice Mayor.
Vice Mayor. Vice Mayor.
No, I got to tell you a funny story, because I called Janine this morning, and she said, "Hello, Gary." And I said, "That is the first time you've called me by my real name since I think I've known you." So I have lost part of my identity and gone back to my normal place. I really enjoyed that phone call.
So I won't be voting either. I want to read this to the record, so it's in there. On advice of our attorney, Cliff Shepard, I will not be voting tonight because I am the vice president of the Veterans Association, and voting could be an ethic violation or a sunshine violation, so I will not be voting.
Thank you. Okay, so then it's the three of us. Does that mean they're not participating in the discussion either? Okay.
Correct.
So it's the three of us. And
Before, just what this could have happened, if a third member of us was on the Veterans Association, had been there, three of us wouldn't be voting, and you wouldn't have a quorum and couldn't even vote on it. That's why some of these weird rules you got to pay attention to, because they can get you caught in a situation which would be somewhat untenable.
thank you, Vice Mayor. Janine, if you could present this for us?
Yes, I will be happy to. I should disclose I too am a member of the Veterans Association,
I am
but
as well.
I do not go to the meetings for these very reasons. At the request of the Ponce Inlet Veterans Association, both I and the Public Works Manager, Jeff Miller, met with several members on November 19th of last year. This was to discuss possible changes to the contractual requirements of the Veterans Memorial property. They had reached out to me, before, just, to basically find out if the town would be willing to help them. That some of the members are getting to, this Veterans Memorial now has been there, I believe it's 10 years, and some of the members aren't as spry as they were when they first put the whole thing together, and it's a grassroots group. They put the whole thing together themselves. And they have a lot of pride, as they should, for that beautiful memorial. So they were asking if we would assist with the things like the mulch and the trimming of the shrubs and all of those things. And of course, quite frankly, we've been willing to do that all the way along, and we've often, just done it because it looked like it could use a little bit. So we've had a very cooperative relationship this entire 10 years. So when we had this meeting, they wanted to formalize this cooperative relationship for anybody going forward, and basically take the current agreement that we have and show that delineation between the tasks that the town does and would continue to do, and then the things that they would be responsible for. I know we have had some discussions previously about other areas as far as whether or not we would, get into any sort of memorial benches or that, and so I know that selling anything where people can put writing on things is not something that the town will get involved in. So I definitely expressed that we did not want anything to do with the maintenance of the actual pavers that have all of the names, and I wouldn't want to risk damaging them, nor could we replace them. So that all stayed on the association side, even things like re-leveling them because of potential for damage. The power washing and seal walkway, whoever was going to have it would be contracting it out, so the Veterans Association would keep that as well because they would be contracting that out. And they did note about a crack on the marble slab. It's been there, I believe, since very shortly after it was put in. And but they can, if they would like to pursue, we couldn't get a quote on that. This would not be the time to try to in this shortage of all kinds of supplies. So then on the town side, we would brush the walkway weekly, weed the flower beds weekly, clean the benches monthly, spray for ants as needed, prune trees as needed. We would polish the memorial semi-annually. We would power wash benches semi-annually. We would mulch the flower beds semi-annually and plant additional flowers semi-annually. The only enhancement item that I have on here is to construct a stone or paver path between the monument and the south seating area. That is not the kind of pavers that get written on. That is just something to increase the safety for presenters. And since this is on our property, and often you all are the presenters, along with others that come, we don't want people tripping over bushes and issues that, under its current configuration. So that is on here as an enhancement item. I do not currently have a cost for it, but it is something that we could plan for perhaps in next year's budget and get some costs at that time.
Thank you, Janine. I've read the agreement. I'm comfortable with it. I have no questions, and I did speak with Cliff about it. Do either of you have any questions about the agreement or anything, Liz?
No, I'm sure that this is something you've already taken care of. Of course, I'm always thoughtful about the capacity of the staff in the town and the public works folks, and just making sure that, they're happy to take this on. I see them out there doing their thing in the park, and as long as they're fine doing it, it doesn't break them from a capacity standpoint. I think it's a lovely thing for us to do.
I think it's wonderful. Is there anyone from the Veterans Administration who wishes to speak, or no? Okay. Anyone in the audience that would like to ask any questions or speak? Nothing? All right. Well then, seeing none, I move to approve the amended and restated license, maintenance, and easement agreement between the town and Ponce Inlet Veterans Association, set forth at length as part of item 13B of the Town Council's January 20, 2021 agenda item. Second. Roll call, please. Mayor Pritzker. Yes. Councilmember Caswell. Yes. Councilman Milano.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Smith? Oh, no. Okay, thank you. Okay, that's great, and very good. We're now down to the comments, and we'll begin with Vice Mayor Smith.
Well, I want to congratulate you for having the first State of the Town video. Very nice. It enhances it, makes it much more interesting to watch.
Well, thank you, thank you. That's enough, okay. Councilmember Israel?
I just want to say, I think the meeting, my mic here. There it is. I just want to say the meeting I thought went well tonight. I like the involvement from the community, especially on the bike issue. I hope that continues as we move down the road with more participation from the residents of the town. And also the council, we worked together tonight. I feel it was a good meeting.
Thank you, Dave. Liz?
That's exactly what I was going to say. So thank you. I think we worked very collaboratively tonight, and I cannot thank the citizens enough who have now fled the building for coming out tonight on topics of interest to them. We have some perennial folks that continually show up in the meetings and offline to stay engaged and stay involved, and I appreciate those consultations, and I'm just going to publicly say thank you to all of the citizens that I've spoken to over the last 3 weeks. If the planning board does not get people to show up and make a comment, or we get one person to make a comment, I'm going to reach out to the citizens. And I'm going to make the phone calls, and I'm going to find out what people have to say. So, I mean, the town is doing its bit in terms of notifying people, certainly holding ample amount of opportunity in terms of public meetings for people to speak. But I just feel quite convicted that if we can't get the kind of participation we want, I would feel more comfortable voting on things if I actually got some input. So please don't be surprised if you hear from me on the phone regarding input, or I might even knock on your door if I'm out and about with a few topics that I'm thinking about now. But I want to thank you for being so receptive, those of you who have made the calls and taken the time to talk with me and educate me so that I can make informed decisions when I'm up here. Thank you.
Thank you. Bill?
Well, first of all, I hope everybody had a wonderful holiday. We missed you all, as Liz said, having a nice audience today. My holiday, I love to wander, you know that. My holiday was great. We have twin grandchildren, a boy and a girl. The girl was 2 pounds 13 ounces. The boy was 3 pounds 11 ounces. They turned 16 in February, and they were both taller than me. So, what anybody says, wonderful things happen in our life. I gave each council member some information on First Step Shelter. It looks like this. I gave one to someone else down there so he could go to C4PI. But just real quick, because I know some people don't like when we discuss this, but 240 people were served in the First Step Shelter this past year. It was 240 people, 101 are now residents that we found a home for with a full-time job. Just some facts about the people that we've taken into the shelter in this past year. 60% are now currently on psychiatric medications. 70% are still struggling with substance abuse. Well, these are the 240. 61 are over the age of 45. 58 are now on Social Security disability. 58% are now on Social Security disability. And last year, 6 residents that we had in the shelter passed away from health problems. And one last side note, I don't know if you've ever gone by wholesale lighting, but I've said this numerous times, I'm going to say it again. The owner of wholesale lighting is a person called Roseanne Tornatore. She donated $250,000 of her money to build the safe zone. This past year, 2,492 homeless people were able to have a safe place to sleep and not having to worry about being robbed, beaten up, or whatever the case may be. And our safe zone has now been approved when the weather gets cold and they open up the shelters for keeping people warm. Our safe zone has now been approved to be one of those shelters out in that area. So, you know how I feel about it, but I'm going to continue to throw that information out as it comes in. And I just want to thank the town for continuing to support it. I mean, if it wasn't for the town and the towns and the municipalities and the county, Daytona Beach, and the people that volunteer, I mean, right now, the brand-new elected Daytona Beach council person, I think his last name's Strickland, spends 2 days a week out at the First Step Shelter because he believes in it so much. And again, I hope you have a wonderful Valentine's Day, because that's coming up next.
Thank you, Bill. Okay, first I want to just share a little bit of state legislative updates. Our state legislators, Representative Tom Leake and Senator Tom Wright, introduced bills related to special events to address our community's concerns about the negative impacts of unsanctioned and pop-up events such as Trucktoberfest. Trucktoberfest. These two bills came about directly due to the concerns that Ponce Inlet and neighboring cities raised. On animal welfare ordinances, a bill has been filed that would grandfather our ban on retail sales, which means our protections for animals will continue, even though other municipalities will be preempted from doing what we did should this filed bill become law. Another previously discussed bill that would have required a business impact statement every time a municipality either created or changed an ordinance is being modified. This could have created a large and expensive burden for us, so I'm going to continue to monitor it and I'll keep you all posted. I am going to Tallahassee on February 7th through February 9th. On behalf of our town for legislative action days, and during this time I will have the opportunity to meet with our legislators to provide input on bills that have been filed or amended. Something to look forward to, I met with our county chair, Jeff Brower, and I'm pleased to announce that he will be coming to our town council meeting in February and will briefly speak to us at that time. And lastly, I was invited to address the City of DeLand Council at their last meeting to share our town's experience in the preparation and adopting of the anti-tethering and adequate shelter ordinances we implemented in 2021. And that's all I have for now. So, our town manager, Janine?
Thank you. Just a few things. What I wanted to start off with is that the staircase here between Town Hall and the police department had fallen into definite disrepair. Our safety, we were all beginning to notice that the boards creaked when we walked on them, but the safety committee took notice of that as well. And that was, we then asked Public Works to try to get some quotes on replacement, and the only quote that we were able to get was at about $25,000, and then the contractor said, "I'm sorry, I'm just too busy, I can't do these kind of, these are the small jobs." So they couldn't do it. So our Public Works manager, Jeff Miller, we had 3 employees, Jeff Jowers, Tyler Blewett, and Randy Stewart. And I have to tell you that they redid that staircase in a way that has made it safe again. It is rock solid. They utilized materials that were left over from our boardwalk project. And you can go check that now. It is better than it's ever been. I walked across it today. Nothing creaked, and I have to say, so basically, now, I can't say that at some point in the future we won't have to do this project, but for now, this project is beautifully done and has saved the town about $22,000 Plus, we couldn't get anybody to do it anyway. So it's not even just a $22,000 savings. It's a matter of being able to keep that as a functional item. And this is the type of creativity that we, see come up at different times from various employees when they, so I have recognized them with award days that, you graciously have in the personnel rules and regs that I'm able to give to employees for outstanding activities, and I wanted just to make you aware of that as well. The names, that was Jeff Jowers, Tyler Blewett, and Randy Stewart.
Just if we see them out and about, I want to say hello and thank you.
That's the crew here on the north end, so.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
And thank you for making that happen.
Additionally, I wanted to mention that tomorrow is actually my 12-year anniversary as the town manager. Now, I've worked here for almost 18 years, but it will be 12 years that I've been in the town manager role. Thank you for that. I want to let you know that as part of that, when that time comes around each year, and mine happens to fall in January, so I put together a prior year comprehensive list of everything that the various departments have, been working on and, accomplished, and as much of everything as I can pull together. And I have been working on that with lots of interruptions this entire week. I would like to have that memo out to you tomorrow, along with a copy of my evaluation form. And if it's not out to you tomorrow, it will be out to you by Monday. So I wanted to let you know that that is forthcoming. And we have 30 days, according to our policy, to do evaluations, or, that's basically what we have in there, for all employees at least, but they're your rules. Do it. The other thing I wanted to mention on the calendar is, I know, Mayor, you're not going to be able to attend this because it conflicts with your Tallahassee required engagement for the legislative session, but on February 8th, we have the Volusia County State of the County Address for any of you that can attend. You are welcome to send your RSVP desire to Debbie, and she will handle those, for all of us. I wanted to note that your Charter Review Committee, which is noted on this agenda as being at 3 o'clock on February 17th, that has now been changed to 1 o'clock. And on February 22nd, the dedication ceremony for the Jesse Lindsay Boat Ramp at 9 a.m. At the boat ramp. We're at Davies Park. So we have some neat things coming up. There's a whole list of other cool things that are on your list. And lastly, I just wanted to note, I think we have a birthday tomorrow. Is it your birthday tomorrow?
That is correct.
Happy birthday. Happy birthday.
Patty's is the 24th.
And Wednesday is the 38th.
That's how old you are.
Are you done? Okay, and from our attorney, do you have anything to share with us?
Cliff did not give me anything to share, so I assume everything is going amazing.
Is he ever coming back?
He does. He's sorry he couldn't be here. Our office had thus far been lucky with COVID. Unfortunately, one of our associates is quarantining, so we had a lot of shuffling around. So you got me. But he's sorry that you were
Thank you. We were happy to have you. Thank you for coming. Okay, so if there's nothing further, then this meeting...
Does that thing start?
No, it doesn't start.
Does that start?
Actually, you've adopted it now.
It's effective now?
Here, but it's in place.
Robert? Come on up. You'll be our first person.
Appropriate, Robert.
You're it. I know it's 2 minutes, just to our comments. Go ahead.
Okay, 2 minutes. You got 5 up there. I want to apologize. I made some deliberately extreme comments earlier, but HB 53, and I'm going to apologize to our attorney. I was really hoping Cliff might be here so he and I could get into it like we usually do, but that's okay. Number 2, with Janine, you said something about a county event on February 8th. What was that again?
That is the State of the County Address at the Ocean Center. It is open to the public.
And who will be doing that?
Volusia County.
The chairman?
Yes. Well, actually, I believe that all of the county council members, speak at it, but he leads it.
Collectively do that. Okay, thank you. And now back to my extreme comments. I'd like the council to consider a kind of attitude change on this business with the state legislature. And in that respect,
Robert, I apologize for cutting you short, but my understanding is based upon the resolution. You can only respond to what we just said, but you can respond to me because I'm going up to the legislative. I'm going up, so go ahead.
Yes. My suggestion would be to consider a policy consistent with what you're doing on our behalf that will enable us to produce a resolution that takes exception to specific laws that have been passed and that we are going to abide by under objection and duress. That's something that I'd like you to consider. If you want to amend to the first resolution on House Bill 53, my comments, be my guest. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Anybody else for your 2-minute final public participation? No? Okay. So, our meeting is adjourned, 9:48.
I